Chapter 241. Qing Mu's originally tense face slowly relaxed at this moment. Blood-robed Pavilion could finally be saved, but the smile on Greenwood's face froze in an instant. That kind of smile on his face was so strange. But no one cared about the strange expression on Greenwood's face. Instead, they all looked at Ruo Jin, who was standing in front of Greenwood. Ruo Jin held a golden sword in his hand, and directly stabbed it into Greenwood's abdomen. Moreover, a lot of internal energy was unceasingly pouring into Greenwood's body through the golden sword, and unceasingly destroying Greenwood's internal organs. A trace of black blood slowly flowed out from the corner of Greenwood's mouth. Obviously, Greenwood's kidney was already destroyed. At this moment, Greenwood blankly looked at Ruo Jin in front of him, and his face was full of disbelief. Ruo Jin, the master of 5 elements altar of blood-robed Pavilion, actually used his golden sword to attack him? Why did it become like this? Oh. Ruo Jin's mouth slightly carried a smile, but it was a kind of fake smile, which made people feel very gloomy and cold. He gently pulled out his golden sword from Greenwood's abdomen, bringing out a handful of blood mist. Aren't you usually very astute, and always had that kind of see-through-everything expression on your face? How come now you have this kind of appearance? Ruo Jin gently put his left hand on his fist holding the golden sword, then said to Sasori with a smile. I've troubled you to put on a show with me. White Tiger's injury is indeed my mistake, but the overall situation can't be changed. Blood-robed Pavilion is destined to be swallowed up by Akatsuki organization. Greenwood's eyes slightly opened. Just a moment ago, Ruo Jin was imprisoned in the arm cage by Sasori. Was it actually an act? Ruo Jin, you bastard. Why did you do such a thing? Seeing the situation here, Ho-Tu didn't care about the various clay figurines that Dead Ale shot at him. Letting the explosive clay hit his body, thick earth continued to run towards Greenwood. Ho-Tu, who was originally steady and dull, looked at Ruo Jin very angrily. Shouldn't you be the clearest about why I'm doing this? I, Ruo Jin, have made outstanding contributions to the Blood-Robe Pavilion. Even Qi Yan's contributions to the Blood-Robe Pavilion are not as great as mine. Among the 5 altar lords, I am the strongest. However, the Blood Garment Pavilion's master is not me. Previously, each and every one of you used the so-called dragonization test to brush off others and yourselves, and were satisfied with a mere altar master position. However, all of us know in our hearts that without the heavenly tribulation sword, is it really possible to pass the dragonization path? But now, a brat who came out of nowhere with a heavenly tribulation sword had passed through the path of dragon transformation that you all respected the most. Did you all take him as your leader? You didn't. Because you want to protect the rights in your hands. You guys are willing to be mediocre, but I, Ruo Jin, am not. What I want is for the reputation of the Blood-Robe Pavilion to resound throughout the shinobi world, and let everyone know the strength of the Blood-Robe Pavilion. All of this is impossible to achieve in the hands of people like you. Since that is the case, why don't I go and make friends with another force that has the same intention to fulfill my wish? When Ruo Jin said this, his face was full of pride. It was as if he wasn't the one who had betrayed the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Instead, it was Qing Mu, Qi Yan, and the others who had betrayed the Blood Cloth Pavilion. So, the traitor among the altar lords is you? A voice suddenly sounded in the place where the disciples of the Blood-Robe Pavilion gathered, and Ruo Jin slowly looked over. The disciples of the Blood-Robed Pavilion slowly spread out, as if they wanted to reveal the person who had spoken. The person's black hair had reached his shoulders, and he was wearing a black robe with some cloud patterns embroidered with red thread on the edge of the robe. What was even more noteworthy was that this person was holding a dark longsword in his hand. Although the style of the longsword looked very ordinary, an inexplicable chill appeared in everyone's eyes. It was as if this sword would slash their throats at any time. A sense of danger appeared in everyone's heart. This person was naturally Nangong Zhe. When Nangongja saw Rui Jin standing in front of Aoki, his heart suddenly had a sudden impulse. As if something had happened, he walked out of the Blood Robe Pavilion's attic, and hid his aura among the disciples of the Blood Robe Pavilion. Bai Shui, who was wearing a green dress, was also quietly standing behind Nangongja, and her eyes were tightly staring at Rui Jin, who was already standing on the side of Akatsuki, and a kind of anger was brewing in her eyes. Although she had already guessed that there must be a ruthless person among the altar lords, but now there was a person who had directly betrayed the Blood Robe Pavilion, which was really very difficult to accept. Rui Jin did not answer Nangongja's words. Instead, his eyes were tightly staring at the Heaven's Disaster Sword in Nangongja's hand. Nangongja naturally noticed Rui Jin's gaze, and slowly raised the Heaven's Disaster Sword in his hand. The corners of Nangongja's mouth curled into a smile. A kind of understanding quietly appeared in Nangongja's heart. He never thought that the answer to the matter that he had always been puzzled about would be so obvious. Was it you, who ordered Qi Yan to destroy the village where I grew up? It was for this Heaven's Disaster Sword. Rui Jin's words before had already clearly stated his thoughts about the Heaven's Disaster Sword. Rui Jin wanted to become the head of the Blood Robe Pavilion, and was wholeheartedly ambitious, and was even willing to directly betray the Blood Robe Pavilion. Wasn't such a person the most likely person in the Blood Robe Pavilion who ordered others to slaughter the village where Nangongja grew up? Rui Jin had previously said that Qi Yan's contribution was not as big as his, and that Qi Yan was a relatively crude person, and was easily used by people who were stronger than him. Nangongja never thought that the truth was so obvious. Rui Jin. Rui Jin. Rui Jin. It was this person who had completely destroyed his stable life. He had no choice but to step into such a cruel world of life and death, and had no choice but to fight with others to save his own life. Everything was Rui Jin's plan. Chapter 242. At this moment, an uncontrollable anger was accumulating in Nangongja's chest. There was no way to get it out of his chest. It was as if a huge rock was pressing down on his chest, making him feel very depressed. Nangongja had always been a rational person, and he could control his emotions well. Nangongja knew from the beginning that he was hiding in the Blood Cloak Pavilion. There was a high chance that he would find out who ordered the extermination of the people in the village where he used to live. However, when the truth was placed in front of him, he still couldn't control his emotions. This was normal. The so-called emotions were like a vast ocean, filled with all kinds of positive and negative feelings. Under normal circumstances, it was always in a calm state. However, when something beyond a certain limit appeared, it would be like an underwater earthquake in the depths of the ocean, and huge waves would be set off in an instant. The dam built by his own rationality was not even worth mentioning in the face of such power. Rui Jin, Nangongja's eyes were a little red. Although his tone sounded so calm, everyone could clearly feel the killing intent in Nangongja's heart. Qi Yan, the only one who knew a little bit of the inside story, was now unconscious. Only Qing Mu and Ho Tu were left looking at Nangongja in confusion. Village? Qing Mu and Ho Tu didn't understand what Nangongja said, but Rui Jin understood clearly. Sure enough. You're not from Nangong's family? Instead, you're from that village. Qi Yan really didn't know how to act. He actually let someone like you save his life. As expected, the heavenly Tao has changed. The heavenly tribulation sword that I've been longing for has fallen into the hands of my victim. Although Rui Jin kept saying that Nangongja was his victim, there was no trace of regret on his face. On the contrary, he seemed to find it very interesting, looking at Nangongja with interest. I say, shouldn't you be thanking me? If I didn't let people kill all the people in the village where you lived, how could you get the inheritance of Nangong's family? How could you become a famous Yama in the ninja world with the tribulation sword in your hand? If it weren't for me, maybe you wouldn't know that place and live a poor life. Sasori and Deidara stood next to Rui Jin, although they didn't know the cause and effect of the matter. However, the words of Ruo Jin obviously made Sasori and Deidara touch the truth a little bit. It seems that there was a deep hatred between Ruo Jin and Nangongzhe. However, whether it was Sasori or Deidara, they weren't the kind of people who cared about the lives of civilians. What was the difference between those who couldn't protect themselves and dogs? If they die, they die. Even what Ruo Jin said was actually somewhat reasonable. Ruo Jin actually indirectly created the current Nangongzhe. But, this so-called fame. My parents, my family, they exchanged their lives for it. If I could choose, I would rather become the kind of person who dug in the soil with his back facing the sky. The sadness in Nangongzhe's eyes was so strong that it almost flowed out of his eyes. In fact, Nangongzhe didn't have so much desire. From the beginning of him becoming a ninja to now accepting the Blood Cloak Pavilion, it was all a choice made by Nangongzhe for self-protection. When he was on the path of dragonization, although it was his own heart's demon that controlled him to break through, that illusion was actually what Nangongzhe yearned for the most. Without that kind of senseless killing, without so much sadness, just quietly living with the people he cares about, this is what Nangongzhe yearns for the most in his heart. Unreasonable. Ruo Jin looked at the sad Nangongzhe and felt very puzzled. There has never been such a stupid person, isn't it just a few lives? You can ask all the people in the shinobi world and ask them to choose the life of their loved ones and their strength at the top of the shinobi world. At least 80% of them wouldn't refuse such a choice, right? Stupid? I've lost my humanity and my persistence. If that's foolish enough, then let me be foolish enough to be foolish enough. Nangongzhe put his hand on the hilt of the Heaven's Disaster Sword. The slightly rough feeling of the hilt was constantly transmitted to Nangongzhe's brain through his palm. The sword was cold, but the anger and sadness had turned into a flame burning in Nangongzhe's chest, and it couldn't be calmed down for a long time. Want to stop these flames from burning his heart? It's very simple. Kill Ruo Jin in front of him, who was bragging and thinking that he had done a very interesting thing. No one expected Nangongzhe to make a move at this time, but Ruo Jin, as a swordsman, saw Nangongzhe put his hand on the hilt of the sword, and he was already secretly on guard in his heart. Sure enough, Nangongzhe used an extraordinary speed to pull out the Heaven's Disaster Sword from the sheath in his hand. The emotions that were originally suppressed in his chest were instantly released along with the unsheathing of the sword, turning into a combustion accelerant that was added to Nangongzhe's sword chi. A gust of wind rushed towards Ruo Jin along with the sound of a sword being unsheathed. Nangongzhe's figure holding the Heavenly Calamity Sword followed closely behind. Ding! The crisp sound of the blades colliding instantly sounded, and Ruo Jin's hair fluttered because of the wind when Nangongzhe pulled out his sword. The dark blade of the Heaven's Disaster Sword in Nangongzhe's hand collided with the bright blade of the golden sword in Ruo Jin's hand, and even left a little bit of sparks in the air. Seeing Nangongzhe make a move, Bishui also grabbed the long sword hanging on his waist, and wanted to step forward and fight together with Nangongzhe. Aoki also ignored the wound on his abdomen and internal injuries, grabbed his dragon head wooden staff, and wanted to fight together with Hotu and Nangongzhe against the people of Akatsuki Organization. After all, Akatsuki Organization still had Sasori, Deidara, and many other ninjas here. Although Nangongzhe didn't look back, but he could feel that the person behind him was about to make a move. Let me end this battle, otherwise I will regret it for the rest of my life. It's rare for me to be willful, right? Chapter 243. Bishui and Aoki obviously felt the serious feeling in Nangongzhe's tone, and slowly put down the weapons in their hands. The long whip was once again hung on the side of the waist, the dragon head wooden staff was again on the ground, and the clenched fists were also slowly opened. On the other hand, in the direction of Scorpion and Dead Ale, the two of them gradually relaxed their nervous emotions. Because although Nangongzhe and Ruo Jin were confronting each other with their swords, his eyes were still staring at these two people. Although Sasori and Nangongzhe had not directly fought, but Deidara and Nangongzhe had a fierce fight. Nangong's eyes at this moment made people feel a kind of bone-chilling coldness in their hearts. Sasori and Deidara believed that as long as they dared to intervene in the battle, Nangongja would definitely cut off their heads at all costs. When Nangongja attacked Ruo Jin with an instant burst of speed, that kind of unimaginable speed and murderous aura really made people feel a kind of strength that was difficult to ignore. Moreover, this Ruo Jin was originally a spy used by Akatsuki to understand the information of Blood-Clothed Pavilion, and his main purpose was to have a one-sided contact with Xiao Nan. In the end, how much power Ruo Jin could play in the process of subduing Blood-Clothed Pavilion, Sasori and Deidara were not so clear. For Ruo Jin, facing such a threat that may lead to their death was really unwise. After all, Sasori and Deidara were more like pure ninjas. Although they had their own various plans and tricks when fighting with people, but their kind of plan for the overall situation still had some shortcomings. TSK, these people of Akatsuki are really not so trustworthy. Ruo Jin also felt very uncomfortable in his heart, but his cooperation with Akatsuki was just a win-win relationship of mutual benefit. At this time, Akatsuki did not have a qualified leader, so he made such a decision to stand by and do nothing. Ruo Jin still thought clearly. Right now, the biggest problem was the Nangongja in front of him, who was holding the Heavenly Tribulation Sword. As long as he could directly kill Nangongja here, then Scorpion and Dead Ale would naturally be able to see his ability. And at that time, the people of Akatsuki organization would attack and capture the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion in one fell swoop. Relying on his means and strength, Ruo Jin felt that he could completely control Blood-Robed Pavilion in his own hands. You, really want to kill me? Ruo Jin looked at Nangongja and said with a smile. To be honest, when I first saw you, I already felt that I would have to fight you sooner or later. In the shinobi world, there are very few people who use swords, and it's even more difficult for people like you and me to fight. Now that you've made me a target you must kill, that's for the best. Let's enjoy the slaughter now. Enjoy? Nangongja's tone was slightly cold. This is not the kind of swordsmanship between us, but a kind of slaughter. Since you want to enjoy it, then I'll let you enjoy it. With your life as the price for this enjoyment. Li Yang. Protect my body and fight with me. Nangongja secretly said in his heart. This was the summoning language of Li Yang's black armor, which hadn't been summoned for a long time. When Nangongja brought his younger sister, Mashiro, and little Linger to the Lion Clan's different space, and also brought Uchiha Fugaku, his wife, and Yuri Koyuri to the Lion Clan's different space, Li Yang once told him that the Lion Clan's different space has an instinctive rejection of people who come from the shinobi world, and that they need Li Yang to stabilize the space, otherwise, these people are likely to be rejected by the Lion Clan's different space. This was also the reason why Nangongja didn't summon Li Yang to become the black armor that he usually wore, even though he would occasionally engage in battle with others, and even when the battle wasn't going his way, Nangongja didn't summon Li Yang to become the black armor that he always wore. But today, Nangongja knew that if he really wants to defeat Ruo Jin in front of him, and at the same time protect the Blood-Robe Pavilion, then Li Yang's power must not be idle. As long as he can calculate the time clearly, he can guarantee that the people in the Lion Clan's different space will not be rejected by the Lion Clan's different space. The Lion Clan is a warlike race, and Li Yang has been staying in the Lion Clan's different space for many years. To be honest, it's very uncomfortable. When Nangongja issued a summoning signal, Li Yang's face showed a very human-like smile. He shook his body, and the crisp sound of bones colliding rang out. With a step, he stepped into a spatial tunnel. At this moment, several space cracks appeared behind Nangongja in the shinobi world. From time to time, black light particles drilled out of them and fell on Nangongja's body. Gauntlets, breastplates, helmet. Pieces of armor appeared on Nangongja's body, and black lightning jumped in the armor on Nangongja's body. The black armor, which has not seen the light of day for a long time, once again appeared in the shinobi world. Li Yang, I've really wronged you over the years. But today, we can finally fight side by side again. This time, let's fight to our heart's content again. Nangongzhi said slowly to the black armor on his body. Although his heart was full of murderous intent, Nangongzhi could still clearly feel the unconcealable joy from Liang. Of course, Nangong boy, we don't have anything else to do today. We just came here to fight to our heart's content. Your enemy is my enemy. Li Yang's rough voice sounded in Nangongzhi's mind. Obviously, Li Yang also knew what he was fighting for. Although fighting was a personal matter, when there were people who understood and supported you, it was hard to avoid feeling a kind of comfort. Sharp metal. I'll let you see the strength of the two of us. The Yama of the shinobi world is not just Nangongzhi. As Nangongzhi's voice sounded, the lightning on the black armor began to slowly spread to the Heaven's Tribulation sword in Nangongzhi's hand. At the same time, Nangongzhi also instilled the sword energy and internal energy in his body into the Heaven's Tribulation sword as if they were free. The Heaven's Tribulation sword instantly bloomed with dazzling black light. The sword energy traveled for 3,000 miles, and a single sword light shone on 19 continents. Right now, Nangongzhi is the real and strongest Nangongzhi. Chapter 244. There were a lot of things that strangers might not take to heart, and perhaps the people close to you might not take to heart, but your enemies would remember these things very clearly. The black armor that had fought with Nangongzhi in the past, and was engraved with many scars, may not have appeared in front of people in these past few years, but Rui Jin had never forgotten about this thing that could make Nangongzhi's strength soar. Whether it was its superior defense or the thunder that constantly jumped on its body, it was an important means to increase Nangongzhi's strength. When Nangongzhi's disaster sword in his hand, under the effect of internal energy, sword chi, and the black armor's thunder, it bloomed with a black brilliance, making it difficult for Rui Jin's eyes to see everything around him. Rui Jin also stimulated his inner vigilance to the highest level. At this moment, whether it was Blood Cloth Pavilion or Akatsuki's eyes, they could no longer see the situation around Nangongzhi and Rui Jin, because both of them were enveloped by the black brilliance. However, within the black brilliance, they could still clearly hear the sound of metal clashing. Obviously, even after losing their vision, Nangongzhi and Rui Jin were still engaged in a fierce battle. Not long after, the black brilliance had already slowly dissipated, leaving no trace behind. Nangongzhi and Rui Jin were standing opposite each other at this moment. Both of them more or less had some scars left behind from the battle. Rui Jin's clothes had a lot of holes, and there were even wounds in many places. The wounds were charred black, obviously caused by the thunder that constantly surged on Nangongzhi's sword. On the other hand, Nangongzhi's condition was not bad. After all, his body was covered by the black armor of Li Yang, and over the years, Li Yang's strength had not stagnated. Many of the large and small holes on the armor had completely disappeared at this moment, and in the battle just now, Rui Jin's sword that could easily cut through the armor made by Sasori only left a few white marks on Nangongzhi's body, and it can be said that Nangongzhi was unharmed. I didn't expect that in these past few years, you have not been hiding in the ninja world, and obviously didn't experience such a harsh battle, but your strength has indeed risen so quickly. I still underestimated you. Rui Jin looked at Nangongzhi and said with a slightly fierce tone. The information about Nangongzhi's strength was actually very little, and most of the information about Nangongzhi's strength came from some of the previous battles with the other 5 great ninja villages, coupled with some of Nangongzhi's previous performance on the Dragon Transformation Road. Rui Jin has already used his imagination to the extreme to speculate about Nangongzhi's strength, but it seems that he still underestimated Nangongzhi. This kind of growth in strength is simply unheard of. No matter what kind of person, if they want to grow quickly, it is inevitable that they will have to engage in some life and death battles, and rely on the great fear that comes from these life and death battles to become stronger. But Nangongzhi has obviously not fought in any of these years, except for the Dragon Transformation Road of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, which was a huge test, and after that, he didn't have any experience at all. In such a situation, he can grow so fast. Isn't he cheating, or is he a protagonist? There is more that you don't know. I wasn't the kind of person who liked to fight with others. When I finally settled down and let my mind settle down, I didn't know why, but the memories of many battles in the past appeared very clearly in my mind. I spent almost every day thinking about my past battles. My inadequacies, my shortcomings, and my bad habits were all clearly seen by me. Isn't it natural for your strength to grow? Nangongja has actually experienced enough battles, whether it was during the Shinobi World War or after the mission in the Wood Leaf. This kind of combat experience is enough. Even if the number of battles of Rui Jin and Akame in the Blood Cloak Pavilion, who are in charge of the expedition department in the Blood Cloak Pavilion, is added up, they may not be as many as Nangongja. When Nangongja was idle, a lot of memories involuntarily emerged, and Nangongja has been thinking about how to improve his swordsmanship. Swordsmanship, for Nangongja, is a kind of passion, even if Nangongja doesn't like to fight, but this kind of thinking makes Nangongja feel very interesting. Isn't it more important to understand what you have than to get more things that you haven't digested yet? Rui Jin, if you admit the crimes you have committed, I will give you a quick death. After all, you have also contributed a lot to the Blood Cloak Pavilion. As the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, I can't ignore the blood and sweat you have contributed to the Blood Cloak Pavilion because of my own feelings. Nangongja's ultimate goal is to take the Blood Cloak Pavilion into his own hands and make the Blood Cloak Pavilion become a real force in his hands. Some of the necessary pretenses are actually necessary now, at least to let the people of the Blood Cloak Pavilion see Nangongja's attitude towards the disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Think about it, because of Rui Jin's contribution to the Blood Cloak Pavilion, the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion is willing to give a quick death to the enemy who killed the place where he lives. Naturally, he will be more lenient to the ordinary disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. At the same time, if a person like Rui Jin can be killed by the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, the disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion can see Nangongja's ruthless means. His words have two effects at the same time. It is really killing two birds with one stone, isn't it? The meaning of Nangongja's words, whether it is Rui Jin on the opposite side, or Qing Mu and Ho Tu standing behind Nangongja, they are all people who have been in high positions for a long time. As for Bai Shui? At this moment, there is a smile on Bai Shui's face. When Nangongja exploded, Bai Shui was really worried that Nangongja would do something impulsive. But now that Nangongja can say such words, it is obvious that he has calmed down. Leaders are often like this. When you become the leader of a group of people, you actually take out a part of yourself and replace it with the thoughts of your subordinates. One's words and actions would always be interpreted differently by many people. A qualified leader had to think of all the guesses that could be caused by one's words and actions, and then guide everyone's guesses to the path of one's own desire. Judging from Nangongja's actions, it was obvious that he had obtained 3 of them. Chapter 245. Although such a shallow method of subduing people's hearts is extremely easy to see through, its function is not as simple as its operation. Everyone knows that if you want to leave a good impression, you have to show your kind and amiable side. But what if you need to show your kind and amiable side to someone who has a deep hatred for you? It's easy to know but hard to do. Many times this is the case. I did misjudge you, but I won't just give up like this. The path I choose must be the most suitable path for the Blood Cloak Pavilion. In the Shinobi world, the Blood Cloak Pavilion is the biggest anomaly. When most people's power comes from chakra, there is a group of people who have a cultivation system that is not inferior to chakra. There is a good saying, if you are not my kind, your heart will be different. Aren't people like us the so-called anomaly? If we can always hide in the mountains and not reveal our traces, those people in the Shinobi world may not feel that we are a threat. But now we have to go out of such a deep mountain. This is what our disciples want. As long as it is what the people want, there is almost no way to stop it. Even if we, the Altar Lord, rely on our power to temporarily calm everyone's restless heart, we will eventually come down from such a position. When the time comes, we will still have to face such a situation of being suspected by most of the forces in the shinobi world. In this case, why don't we take the initiative to integrate into a force in the shinobi world? The water of the 5 great shinobi villages is too deep. If we go in, we will become nothing but ashes. And the daimyo of various countries and some slightly smaller shinobi villages don't have the courage to accept us. Isn't the Akatsuki organization the best choice? If we join it, we will become a large part of its strength, and even become half of its power. Why don't we choose such a path? But many of you are like this, pretending to be deaf and mute, only caring about living a good life and not making any trouble during your tenure. Just like that, I became an ostrich burying its head in the sand. I am showing you a path. Moreover, this Nangongzhe is from the Woodleaf sect. Who knows if he has any ulterior motives with the Woodleaf sect? Maybe he wants to crush the Bloodcloak Pavilion and merge it with the Woodleaf sect to strengthen the Woodleaf sect. In fact, Ruijin already understood that if he really wanted to defeat Nangongzhe, it would be very difficult to achieve his wish. Before Nangongzhe put on the black armor, he and Nangongzhe were evenly matched. However, now that Nangongzhe had put on the black armor, it was as if he was a cheater. Ruijin already understood what Nangongzhe said just now. In fact, Nangongzhe wanted to take the Bloodcloak Pavilion into his own hands. In this case, wouldn't the people of Bloodcloak Pavilion be his biggest help? Even if he might die under the sword of Nangongzhe, he could also put a big nail in the Bloodcloak Pavilion's rule for Nangongzhe. Ruijin hoped to become the actual leader of Bloodcloak Pavilion, and he hoped to have great power. But now that he revealed his identity, the people of Akatsuki organization hesitated. It was like putting Ruijin directly on the fire to roast. Xiao Nan, the only one who knew the specific plan of Akatsuki organization, had already fallen into a coma. Another person who might know the plan was missing at the moment. Scorpion and Deadale just wanted to get out of this matter. Ruijin was now in a situation where he was going to die. Since Nangongzhe didn't want to let him have an easy time, then he didn't mind putting a nail in Nangongzhe's head. Wasn't it good to make Nangongzhe uncomfortable? Ruijin's words carried a bit of defense for himself, and also a bit of slander for Nangongzhe, which was transmitted to the ears of every disciple of Bloodcloak Pavilion. Although one couldn't tell what they were thinking from their expressions, such heart-wrenching words would definitely play a certain role. This was the so-called heart anchor. It was unknown whether it would erupt one day due to certain reasons. Broken back dog, once you lose your support, do you only know how to make noise and disturb people's ears? Nangongzhe looked at Ruijin with a bit of disgust. At this moment, his face seemed to have a bit of schadenfreude. All along, Nangongzhe felt that his enemy should be a scheming and astute person. After all, his ruthless and merciless behavior of treating human life as grass was indeed not something a person without intelligence would do. He used Qi Yen as a knife in his hand to achieve his goal, and quietly contacted the people of Akatsuki organization as his foreign aid to help him seize the power of Bloodcloak Pavilion. But now Ruijin was not as wise as he had imagined. On the contrary, he was playing such petty tricks, which made people feel very contemptuous. But thinking carefully, Nangongzhe felt that the treacherous and short-sighted Ruijin in front of him was more like the mastermind behind the scenes. Why did he want to kill Nangong family's grandfather and grandson? Because he was greedy for the power of Bloodcloak Pavilion represented by Heavenly Tribulation Sword. Why did he order Qi Yen to carry out such a pursuit? Because he didn't want his resume to be tainted by the slightest blemish. Why did he want to join hands with Akatsuki organization? Because his own strength and means were not enough. Such a person, once he lost his disguise, lost the possibility of ordering others, lost the support of the forces he relied on, in the end, it was possible for him to become like a broken-back dog, wasn't it? Even if Nangongzhe had now cursed Ruijin, but Ruijin still did not dare to use the sword in his hand to fight a life-and-death battle with Nangongzhe. He wanted to let Nangongzhe experience his spirit as a man, as a swordsman. Instead, he looked at Nangongzhi with a ferocious face, just like a dog baring its teeth. Whether it was Aoki, Bai Shui, Ho Tu, or even Sasori and Deidara of Akatsuki organization, looking at the current appearance of Rui Jin, they couldn't help but have a feeling of disgust in their hearts. Such a person was actually the altar lord of Bloodcloak Pavilion who used to be on the same level as them? Such a person was actually a partner of their organization? As Nangongzhi said, Rui Jin was actually more like a broken-back dog at this moment. Especially in the ninja world, where individual strength was worshipped and heroism was full of admiration, Rui Jin was simply the most despicable kind of person. Chapter 246. I have to say, I originally regarded you as a great enemy in my life. But now, you're really just a barking dog with a broken spine. Since that's the case, it's better not to make everyone feel uncomfortable here. The disgust in Nangongzhi's eyes became more and more intense. This was the person he regarded as his enemy? It was really disappointing, and he couldn't bear to look at him. Sword chi slowly accumulated on the sword in Nangongzhi's hand. Strands of sword chi were born from the sword, and gradually, a dragon formed from sword chi appeared in front of Nangongzhi. It wasn't as huge as the dragon that Nangongzhi condensed when he fought against Nine Tails, Danzo, and Dead Ale. Instead, it looked much smaller. The entire dragon was actually only 7 to 8 meters long, and its width was also very narrow, about 40 to 50 centimeters. However, this sword energy dragon was even more solid. Under the illumination of the sun, it reflected its own luster, as if it was a dragon carved out of glass. Endless sword chi condensed within the dragon, not showing off its sharpness at all. In fact, if it were not for the fact that one could clearly see the figure of the sword chi dragon, one might not even know that there was such a majestic dragon here. Nangongzhi slowly shook his head, as if looking at Rui Jin with some pity. His family, the place he grew up in, were all destroyed by the hands of such a person. Although Nangongzhi never said it, it was indeed a knot in Nangongzhi's heart. Now that he had finally reached a moment of understanding, Nangongzhi couldn't help but feel a little relieved. Go! He pointed the Heaven's Disaster sword in his hand towards Rui Jin, and the sword chi dragon instantly seemed to have found its target. A sound that sounded like the clashing of swords or the roar of a dragon instantly rang out. Nangongzhi's murderous aura and hostility instantly surrounded Rui Jin's body. Rui Jin's surroundings seemed to be filled with cement, sticky and difficult to move. Rui Jin's face was a little proud, because he actually secretly tricked Nangongzhi, which made Rui Jin feel that it was very worthwhile. But the sword chi dragon kept rushing towards him. Originally, because of the distance, he couldn't see the sword chi dragon so clearly at this moment. A unique cold feeling of sword chi seemed to have reached the tip of Rui Jin's nose. His pupils began to dilate, and a kind of extreme panic appeared in his eyes. There was no one who wasn't afraid of death. Even if some people seemed to take death lightly, when death really came to them, there was no one who wouldn't be afraid. At this moment, Rui Jin was like this. Rui Jin wanted to open his mouth and accuse Akatsuki organization of not following the rules and not helping him. Rui Jin wanted to open his mouth and question everyone in Blood Cloth Pavilion. He obviously stood on the opposite side of Blood Cloth Pavilion for the sake of Blood Cloth Pavilion, so why didn't they agree with him? Rui Jin wanted to open his mouth and insult Nangongzhi. He wanted to insult him for being pretentious. He wanted to insult Nangongzhi for snatching his lifelong goal of becoming the head of the Blood Garment Pavilion so easily. But in the end, Rui Jin didn't have anything to say. Rui Jin only hoped that he could open his mouth and beg for mercy. He wanted to say that he was willing to give up all his dignity to help Nangongzhi subdue Blood Cloth Pavilion, as long as he could live. Rui Jin wanted to say all the words, but he didn't say them. Sword Chi Dragon slowly coiled around Rui Jin's body. Dragons had the nature of snakes, so Sword Chi Dragon's body slowly moved around Rui Jin's body. The sharpness of sword qi unceasingly cut the flesh of Ruo Jin's body, and a trace of blood unceasingly flowed out from Ruo Jin's body, but not a trace of blood leaked out. Instead, all the blood accumulated in the body of Sword Qi Dragon. After all, the people of Blood Cloth Pavilion and Akatsuki organization were all cultivators, so everyone's eyesight was very good. Everyone could clearly see that Sword Qi Dragon unceasingly cut a small piece of flesh from Ruo Jin's body, and then slowly become more and more fine with the rotation of Sword Qi Dragon, and finally integrated into Sword Qi Dragon. Just like a glass of water being continuously dripped with red ink, Sword Qi Dragon also gradually changed into a kind of red color unique to human blood. This is Nangong's way of dealing with his enemies. This kind of method is close to death by 1,000 cuts. Nangong himself was wearing a very heavy-looking armor, and his eyes drifted over everyone's body. Killing people with just a nod of the head, but this kind of killing method really made everyone feel a chill in their heart. So, this is Yama? Slowly, the Sword Qi Dragon was completely filled with the color of blood. The Sword Qi Dragon also stopped its rotation. Everyone thought that this matter was finally over, but behind Nangong's back, a shadow appeared. This shadow had green eyes and fangs, but its body was wearing a big red robe. If this kind of funny appearance was dressed up by other people, people would definitely think that this person was a lunatic. But this shadow was so majestic that no one dared to have the slightest bit of blasphemy. This was the shadow of Yama that Nangong condensed in the past. Now, Yama was becoming more and more solid, more and more majestic. This kind of shadow also gave Nangong some special abilities, such as extracting a person's soul. Everyone could see that the shadow behind Nangong put its hand above the Sword Qi Dragon, and a somewhat blurry, but vaguely visible figure of Ruo Jin slowly floated towards Yama's hand at this moment. The shadow looked very transparent, and its face looked very tired, but when the shadow realized that it was being absorbed by such a hand, the obvious panic seemed to make everyone empathize with it. But the shadow couldn't resist. Thus, he could only allow himself to be sucked into the palm of the King Yenluo's projection with endless panic. Then, Yama's shadow was already standing behind Nangong, but the palm that was stretched out towards Ruo Jin's soul was now open, and there seemed to be a yellow and red flame burning in the middle, and Ruo Jin's soul was constantly being burned in it. Chapter 247. Ruo Jin would forever sink into the palm of Nangong's Yama shadow, unable to break free and suffering eternal calamity. This was Nangong's end to his past. Such an ending should be enough to appease the inner resentment of those innocent lives, right? Nangong gently swung the Heaven's Disaster Sword in his hand. The Dark Heaven's Disaster Sword jumped freely like an elf on Nangong's fingertips, and finally returned to the scabbard with a clear cry like a tired bird returning home. The sound of the sword hilt and scabbard coming into contact was crisp and pleasant, and the whole battlefield seemed to echo with such a sound. At the same time when the sound of scabbard and sword hilt intersecting was heard, the glass-like Sword Qi Dragon condensed by Nangong's Sword Qi completely stopped moving. Cracks gradually spread on the Sword Qi Dragon. Obviously, Nangong had released his control over the Sword Qi Dragon. Although Sword Qi had a certain ability to maintain its stability, once it lost its owner's control, it would naturally dissipate. The current Sword Qi Dragon was the same. Like a piece of glass, it slowly shattered, pieces of blood-colored glass continued to fall to the ground. The sunlight passed through the pieces of glass, turning into a seven-colored light under the decomposition of the glass. At the same time, a strong bloody smell continued to spread from the place where the Sword Qi Dragon collapsed. Gradually, the Sword Qi Dragon had completely collapsed, revealing a skeleton with a golden luster. It maintained a struggling posture in front of everyone. The sunlight shone on the skeleton, and the seven-colored light continued to emerge from the bottom of the skeleton. All this should have been very bloody, but at this moment, there was an indescribable beauty produced in such a place. Scorpion and Dead Ale, who were most attracted to the concept of art, were also stunned. Scorpion's art was eternal art. Immortality was the most appropriate summary of Scorpion's art. Dedale's art was an instantaneous explosion. The kind of art that compressed all emotions and life, and then burst out in one breath was what Dedale thought of as art. But no matter what opinions these two people had about their art, there was an indescribable feeling of inferiority in their hearts at this moment. This was because their art was born to better kill people, and they had crowned killing with the name of art. But real art needed the most fundamental criterion, that was beauty. Art was an existence that gave people a kind of beauty. If an art itself didn't have the most basic factor of beauty, then how could it be called art? At this moment, what Nangongzhi showed was a kind of beauty created through life. Whether it was Scorpion or Dedale, they asked themselves and felt that their art was indeed a bit one-sided and overly self-centered. If they didn't believe it, just look at the eyes of those people of Bloodcloth Pavilion and Akatsuki Organization. Rui Jin, as the altar master of Bloodcloth Pavilion and a collaborator of Akatsuki Organization, used such a miserable way to bid farewell to the world. Although people's eyes inevitably had fear of Nangongzhi, they still couldn't let their eyes leave the direction of Rui Jin's skeleton, because such a scene was a kind of beauty that no one had ever seen before. Nangongzhi turned his eyes to Scorpion and Dedale. Now the internal problems of Bloodcloth Pavilion had come to an end, but as the enemy of Bloodcloth Pavilion, Fangshao Organization was still eyeing covetously from the side. The reason why Nangongzhi was willing to take the risk to summon Li Yang and solve the problem of Rui Jin as soon as possible, was that he was worried that Akatsuki Organization would attack Bloodcloth Pavilion regardless of all the previous agreements after the battle. After all, Nangongzhi's participation in the battle was actually a violation of the rules that had been set at the beginning. At this time, if Akatsuki Organization wanted to intervene, there was really no way to stop them. After all, the reason was not on their side, wasn't it? Therefore, Nangongzhi used such a method to deal with Rui Jin, because he wanted to use such a method to let Akatsuki Organization understand that if they really fought with Nangongzhi, they wouldn't have much advantage. Even if he won in the end, Akatsuki Organization would suffer huge losses. After all, after Nangongzhi defeated Rui Jin, he obviously didn't even take a breath. After a while, if the battle really started, not to mention that the people of Bloodcloth Pavilion had already fallen into a desperate situation, just Nangongzhi alone could kill who knows how many people of Akatsuki Organization. The ultimate goal of Akatsuki Organization was not as simple as taking down Bloodcloth Pavilion. Who knows how long Akatsuki Organization would need to recuperate to recover from such a loss. Sasori and Deidara probably knew a little bit about Akatsuki Organization's ambition, so choosing to retreat at this time was also a wise move. Two guests of Akatsuki Organization, our Bloodcloth Pavilion's internal farce can be considered to have come to an end. I also respect Akatsuki Organization very much. From a small force of Rain Country until today, presumably Akatsuki Organization still has a lot of smart people. At this time, you must have already understood that Bloodcloth Pavilion has already stabilized. Anyone who wants to tear off a piece of meat from Bloodcloth Pavilion's body is bound to be prepared for Bloodcloth Pavilion's counterattack. I don't know, what are you planning to do? Nangongzhi lightly flicked his lapel, and didn't know when a little bit of dust had gotten on his lapel. With a little bit of smile on his face, he looked at Sasori and Deidara, but the heart of Sasori and Deidara was ice cold. Xiao Nan was still unconscious and could not give out any orders. She turned her head to look at her own camp. After Deidara lightly nodded his head towards Sasori, Sasori also understood the meaning of Deidara. Now there was no meaning in continuing the battle. After all, Akatsuki Organization had already lost Rui Jin, this kind of tool to recruit the remnants of Bloodcloth Pavilion. Now, although they were unwilling, but they really could only give up at this point. Gentlemen, this time our Akatsuki Organization was rude. Originally this person Rui Jin had asked us to help Bloodcloth Pavilion to pacify the internal affairs of our Akatsuki Organization, this kind of reason, but now your honorable organization obviously doesn't need the help of our Akatsuki Organization. After all, you and I are friendly organizations with many cooperation. Since this matter is over, we naturally should withdraw. Although Sasori's voice was still low and hoarse, but everyone knew that Akatsuki organization had now given in. This invasion of Akatsuki organization had really reached the end of this moment. Chapter 248. War and politics are actually such simple things. This is the most primitive behavior of seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages. If you can gain benefits, then it is naturally worth fighting, but if you will suffer more losses, then you naturally have to stop fighting. Everything is actually so simple and primitive. Hearing Sasori's words, Nangongja also cupped his hands towards Sasori, Deidara and the numerous ninjas standing behind them, and said with a smile, "Sorry to trouble you. We still have a lot of things to deal with in our blood-robed pavilion. Please help yourselves." Nangongja didn't feel anything wrong with Sasori's behavior of pushing all the blame on Ruijin. Anyway, he was already a dead person. Even if he put all the blame on Ruijin, there was no way for Ruijin to come back from the dead and accuse Sasori of being shameless. And throwing all the blame on Ruijin's head was obviously the best solution in this deadlock. Both sides had a way to step down, so why not? "Sorry to disturb you." Sasori turned around and walked towards the periphery of the forest. Seeing Sasori's action, Deidara and other Akatsuki members could only follow Sasori's footsteps and leave the blood-robed pavilion. The beginning of this battle was extremely fierce, but the ending became so dull, which really made everyone feel a little disappointed and depressed in their heart. When the last Akatsuki ninja disappeared from the sight of the blood-robed pavilion's disciples, the blood-robed pavilion's disciples finally put down a huge stone in their heart. Their lives were finally saved, and the blood-robed pavilion was finally saved. Long live the head. Don't know who was the first one to start, but the voice was very loud. The blood-robed pavilion's disciples also seemed to have woken up. If it wasn't for their head appearing at the last moment, turning the situation around and even killing Ruijin, a blood-robed pavilion's traitor, then presumably their lives would have already been lost. Long live the head. Long live the head. Long live the head. The shouts became louder and louder. It was as if a trickle of water had unknowingly converged into a huge ocean. The surging waves startled the birds in the forest and filled the hearts of the blood-cloaked pavilion disciples with boiling hot blood. A feeling of pride had unconsciously filled the heart of every disciple of blood-robed pavilion. This was their leader. Even in the face of such a huge force like Akatsuki organization, he would still spare no effort to preserve the life of every disciple of blood-robed pavilion. Wouldn't such a head seat be in line with everyone's wishes? Hearing the shouts of the disciples around him, Qingmu couldn't help but glance at Nangongja and Bai Shui. Qingmu knew that Nangongja must have been at the headquarters of the Blood-Cloak Pavilion for a long time, but he just watched as countless disciples of the Blood-Cloak Pavilion died because of this war. But Qingmu couldn't blame Nangongja, because Nangongja had indeed saved most of the disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion. How many years had it been since Qingmu had seen the disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion so united to support one person like this? The Blood-Robed Pavilion, which used to fight for its own sake, had disappeared. Only under the leadership of Nangongja could Blood-Robed Pavilion continue to exist. Qingmu fiercely inserted the dragon-head wooden staff in his hand into the ground. Then, his skinny hand slid down along the dragon-head wooden staff. Qingmu's body also slid down along with his hand. Qingmu half-knelt in front of Nangongja with one knee on the ground. Greetings to the head. Thank you for saving Blood-Robed Pavilion. Long live. Long live the head. Seeing that Qingmu had already knelt down, Ho Tu could only kneel down and say to Nangongja, "Long live the head." Bai Shui had a smile on her face. Everything was a foregone conclusion. In the future, Blood-Robed Pavilion would no longer be the Blood-Robed Pavilion of the Five Elements Altar Lord, but Nangongja's Blood-Robed Pavilion. Her 3 years of planning and Nangong's 3 years of forbearance obviously had enough effect. With a smile, Bai Shui also half-knelt on the ground and said to Nangongzhe, "Long live the head." When the disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion saw several altar lords kneeling down, they naturally also knelt in front of Nangongzhe. Looking at the appearance of the people in front of him, Nangongzhe knew that Blood-Robed Pavilion had really become a force in his hands from now on. He finally had his own territory in the ninja world, and he had his own forces. Whether it was himself, his sister, Mashiro, or Little Linger, they finally had a little bit of their own paradise. Nangongzhe pressed his hand in the void, apparently hoping that the disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion would be quiet. He had something to say. "I, Nangongzhe, have always felt that I am actually a very ordinary person. I can be happy, angry, happy, and sad. I am no different from you. You said that I saved Blood-Robed Pavilion and pulled it back from the edge of life and death, but I don't think so. It was everyone who shed their blood for Blood-Robed Pavilion that saved Blood-Robed Pavilion. It was each and every one of you who were not afraid of sacrificing your lives to fight the enemy and save Blood-Robed Pavilion. Qing Mu, Ho Tu, Akane, and Bai Shui all have strong feelings for Blood-Robed Pavilion, so they were willing to put themselves in danger to save Blood-Robed Pavilion. I am just an ordinary person. I can defeat 10 people, 100 people, or even 1,000 people, but there will always be a time when my strength will be exhausted. I alone have no way to guard Blood-Robed Pavilion and prevent Blood-Robed Pavilion from suffering any danger from now on. Only all of you present and countless disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion scattered in the ninja world can really save Blood-Robed Pavilion. We are all the most ordinary people in the world, but when we are together, no one will dare to underestimate us. Because we are Blood-Robed Pavilion. I am the head of Blood-Robed Pavilion. From now on, no matter who wants to attack Blood-Robed Pavilion, I will be the one standing at the forefront. This is my promise to all of you who have shed your blood for Blood-Robed Pavilion." Nangongzhe's words turned into a roar. When Nangongzhe raised the Heaven's Disaster Sword in his hand, countless disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion had also stood up. "I don't need you to kneel down. Blood-Robed Pavilion will never surrender to anyone. You are my brothers and sisters. Why do you need a reason to fight for your loved ones?" The disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion were excited at this moment. They shouted loudly to the sky, "The head is right. We all exist to protect our home. Long live Blood-Robed Pavilion. Long live the head. Long live Blood-Robed Pavilion. Long live the head. Long live Blood-Robed Pavilion. Long live the head. Long live Blood-Robed Pavilion." Chapter 249. Pushing open the door of the Blood Cloth Pavilion's conference room, Nangongzhe saw Bishui, Aoki, Ho Tu, and Akame were already sitting inside. Akame had almost recovered in the past few days, but because of the battle with Conan, he suffered a lot of injuries, so there were still many bandages on his body. Aoki was also a little pale because of Rui Jin's sneak attack on his abdomen. However, the mental state of these few altar masters was still very good. Ever since Akatsuki organization had attacked Blood-Robed Pavilion, the disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion had also been practicing very diligently. Usually, in the early morning, only the disciples who were responsible for cleaning Blood-Robed Pavilion were walking around, but now many disciples had spontaneously gotten up before the sun had risen, and were practicing martial arts in the training field of Blood-Robed Pavilion. Presumably, the good mental state of the disciples of Blood Cloth Pavilion also encouraged the several altar lords of Blood Cloth Pavilion to a certain extent. Head. 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 Seeing Nangongzhe came in, the 4 altar lords also stood up and saluted to Nangongzhe. Their attitude was very respectful, without any arrogance like when Nangongzhe was a mere figurehead. "You are too polite, please sit down. Bishui should have already given you the information, right?" Nangongzhe said and glanced at Bishui. Bisui nodded, apparently wanting to tell Nangongja that she had already given the information to other altar lords. Blood Cloth Pavilion has been in seclusion for a long time, although occasionally we receive some tasks to get some money, and at the same time rely on some of our own industries to maintain operations. But the information we can get about the big and small forces in the ninja world is actually very superficial, so a few days ago, I and Bisui carried out a certain amount of information according to the information I know and the information collected by Bisui Altar. Now, in front of you is some information about the current ninja world. I hope you can take a good look. Nangongja was very calm, and said to several altar lords. Since their master had already spoken, the few altar masters naturally couldn't afford to be negligent. One by one, they opened up the documents in front of them and started reading. From time to time, there would even be a few exclamations. Obviously, they were shocked by the information in front of them. Is this still the information about ninjas that I remember? Since the official establishment of the 5 great shinobi villages and the support of the country, the research in the shinobi villages has made extremely significant progress. Experiments that were originally difficult to carry out because of various resources and environmental restrictions are now in full swing in the 5 great shinobi villages. Although there doesn't seem to be people like Senja Takuma and Uchiha Madara who could shake the shinobi world, the strength of each shinobi village is actually very deep. The current strength of the 5 great shinobi villages is enough to shock people. Originally, the people of Blood Cloak Pavilion thought that the strength of Akatsuki can be said to be the best in the shinobi world. After all, whether it is Konan, Sasori, or Deidara, these people can already be said to be standing at the peak of the shinobi world, but from what Nangongja learned about the strength of Woodleaf, such a comparison is simply the difference between cloud and mud. If Woodleaf can send 1/3 of its strength to fight against Blood Cloak Pavilion will only be defeated faster than the previous attack of Akatsuki. Seeing that the few altar lords seemed to have read through the information in front of them, Nangongja sat up straighter on his seat and said to the few altar lords, "Let's go." Presumably, you already understand how terrifying the world we are facing is, right? In fact, when the 5 great shinobi villages were just established, they were not as powerful as what we see now, but now they have grown into such a behemoth that is difficult to provoke. We actually need to be vigilant enough. Our strength is actually stronger than when the 5 great shinobi villages were established, but the speed of our development is really a bit slow. Why? In the final analysis, it is actually because we have excluded ourselves from the big environment of the shinobi world. Whether it is a ninja or an internal energy cultivator, in fact, we need a variety of battles to temper ourselves, and a variety of medicines to cultivate ourselves. Although our Blood Cloak Pavilion also attaches great importance to this aspect, but it has always been a bit, how to say it? We just stopped maintaining our status quo and lost the idea of enterprising. So I think we can actually imitate the model of the shinobi villages, and secularize ourselves. No longer looking down on others from high above, but increasing our efforts to accept missions from the people to accumulate our wealth and cultivate our own new strength. Take the Emerald Water Altar for example. After ensuring the basic intelligence gathering work, we can accept some assassination missions. Scarlet Flame Altar and Sharp Gold Altar can be used as mercenaries in the shinobi world to accept missions such as expeditions in some small countries. Aoki Altar's medical skills are superb, and unlike the medical ninjas, we can cure patients with some prescriptions, which is our advantage. We can open medical halls in various countries, increasing our economic income, and also provide some necessary bases for Clearwater Altar's operations. As for Thick Earth Altar, we can also accept some guard missions. Such missions not only give us more economic income, but also give us a certain amount of support for other operations. Of course, these are some of my own ideas, and there are definitely a lot of immature places in them. We can discuss it gradually. Nangongja has already thought about the future development direction of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, that is, integrating itself into the shinobi world. Unlike the ninja village, which concentrates all their power together and collects money through missions, the ninja village is different. Instead, we will follow some of the previous arrangements of the Blood Cloak Pavilion and integrate itself into the whole shinobi world. While making the reputation of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, it will also hide the Blood Cloak Pavilion in the secular world, increasing some security. Aoki pursed his lips and seemed to want to say something. After a few hesitations, he said to Nangongzhe, I don't know what the head thinks about how to deal with the sharp gold altar. After all, the future layout of the Blood Cloak Pavilion is a long-term thing, and it needs to be planned slowly, but now that the sharp gold altar has lost its leader, such a thing is imminent. If it was before, naturally, the next altar master will be elected internally, but after all, Nangongzhe is in charge now, and it is difficult to determine whether there is anyone in the sharp gold altar who is on the same side as the sharp gold altar, so this problem was raised by Aoki. Chapter 250. Nangongzhe actually had his own ideas on how to deal with the sharp gold altar. Therefore, although Qingmu thought that he had put the blame on Nangongzhe did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. In the end, it was because the Blood Cloth Pavilion had formed a situation where the 5-element altars were independent of each other and maintained a certain degree of contact with each other. Whether it was Qingmu or Bai Shui, they were not very clear about some of the internal problems of the sharp gold altar. If they casually pushed a person to the position of altar master of the sharp gold altar now, then it was very likely that some people who were on the same side as sharp gold would coerce the new altar master, causing the new sharp gold to walk on the path of deviating from the Blood Cloth Pavilion. I think. Nangongzhe's palm kept stroking the handle of his chair. In my heart, I believe in the sharp gold altar. When a black sheep like sharp gold is removed, the sharp gold altar will definitely be different from what we have seen in the past. It will be like a new life. However, we have to guard against whether there are people in the sharp gold altar who are on the same side as sharp gold. After all, the sharp gold altar is a place that sharp gold has operated for many years. Therefore, the next altar master of the sharp gold altar will be me, the Blood Cloth Pavilion's head. What do you all think? Nangongzhe had actually been thinking about taking the sharp gold altar into his own hands for a long time. Although the Blood Cloth Pavilion's head was nominally the highest leader of the Blood Cloth Pavilion, he did not have any power in his own hands. This was not a good sign. If he could keep the sharp gold altar in his hands, it would undoubtedly be a way to secure his position as the head of the head seat. Sharp gold betrayed the Blood Cloth Pavilion and was killed. All the people in the sharp gold altar must be anxious. This time, the Blood Cloth Pavilion's headquarters suffered a huge loss. The people in the other 5-element altars might vent their anger on the sharp gold altar because of sharp gold's actions. Now, if Nangongzhe became the altar master of the sharp gold altar, no one had the right to gossip. Do you think that the sharp gold altar might betray the Blood Garment Pavilion again? The head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion was the altar master of the acute gold altar. What was the point of betraying himself? Wasn't this a good opportunity for Nangongzhe to absorb the power of the sharp gold altar into his own hands? Moreover, right now, in the blood-clothed pavilion, the emerald water altar was originally supporting Nangongzhe. When Nangongzhe fully grasped the power of the emerald metal altar, and with the support of some neutral disciples of the blood clothing pavilion, the blood clothing pavilion became Nangongzhe's possession. In an organization, using some political means was the most basic behavior. Qingmu, Ho Tu, and Qi Yan also frowned slightly. Obviously, they were considering the pros and cons of Nangongzhe's proposal. In fact, who the sharp gold altar fell into did not have much of an impact on the altar masters. However, once the sharp gold altar became a subaltar directly under the head, it was a different story. Their statuses would definitely drop a lot, but Greenwood and the other two suddenly realized that they were completely powerless to do anything about it. When the blood clothing pavilion was about to be destroyed, Nangongzhe appeared and saved the headquarters of the blood clothing pavilion from disaster. Nangongzhe's timing was too perfect. If the three altar masters were not in danger and the sharp gold altar had not revealed the truth of its betrayal, the Blood Clothing Pavilion would have lost a lot of disciples and no one would be able to publicize Nangong's achievements. However, Nangongzhi used the right timing and his powerful strength to directly engrave his image in the hearts of every Blood Clothing Pavilion disciple present. This was a seed that would quietly take root and germinate, making everyone begin to recognize Nangongzhi's superior position in the Blood Clothing Pavilion. We think that the head's proposal is extremely appropriate. After this incident, the sharp gold altar was simply roasted on the fire. It is naturally excellent that the head is willing to help them. Qing Mu, Ho Tu, and Qi Yan exchanged glances. Obviously, they had already reached a conclusion. Qing Mu stood up and bowed slightly to Nangongzhi. It seemed that he was very grateful to Nangongzhi for saving the sharp gold altar from disaster. Nangongzhi also smiled. No matter whether Qing Mu and the other two agreed with his proposal or not, at least it had been approved in this meeting. After that, it would all depend on Nangongzhi's means to subdue the sharp gold altar. Although the sharp gold altar had been managed by the sharp gold altar for many years, Nangongzhi still believed that he could completely subdue the sharp gold altar. After that, in this meeting room, Nangongzhi and the four altar masters also discussed a lot about the future goals of the Blood Clothing Pavilion and some internal measures. However, these are some ideas that need more time to verify, so we will not talk about them here. Nangongzhi watched Qing Mu, Ho Tu, and Qi Yan get up and leave the meeting room one by one. Nangongzhi gave Bai Shui a look, telling her not to leave in a hurry. Obviously, he had something to tell her. Bai Shui also quickly understood Nangongzhi's meaning. She still sat in her seat, waiting for Nangongzhi to speak. Although our plan to completely control the Blood Clothing Pavilion has been carried out smoothly, we still have to face many difficulties. I hope that sister can overcome these difficulties with me in the future. When Nangongzhi talked to Bai Shui, he didn't have a very formal and distant demeanor like when he talked to Qing Mu, Aoki, and Qi Yan. Instead, it was very intimate. When Bai Shui heard Nangongzhi's words, she smiled sweetly and said to Nangongzhi, "That's natural, brother, you and I are of the same bloodline, so naturally, we have to help each other." Nangongzhi nodded, then said to Bai Shui with a serious expression, "Don't worry. Although we have successfully repelled the Akatsuki this time, they are still a huge threat after all. This time, the Akatsuki only sent 3 core members, and they have already beaten the Blood Clothing Pavilion. We have to continue to monitor the Rain Village and the Akatsuki, and even increase the strength of the original foundation. At the same time, we have to keep an eye on Woodleaf's Uzumaki Naruto and Danzo. Uzumaki Naruto is a member of Woodleaf's 9 Tails, Column Force, and Danzo has a deep hatred with the Akatsuki. As long as we keep an eye on these 2 people, we will have a certain advantage. Chapter 251. Translator, WQL Editor, Alim Nyoibo Studio. Nangongzhi opened the door in front of him in a room near the water. A mist unique to the ocean in the early morning poured into the room. This is the 2nd year since Nangongzhi completely took control of the Bloodcloak Pavilion. With the help of Bishui and several other altar lords, the Bloodcloak Pavilion also began to slowly unveil its mysterious veil in front of the world. Many people in the ninja world even regarded the Bloodcloak Pavilion as a mission-receiving agency only under the 5 major ninja villages of the ninja world. Nangongzhi's strategy of secularizing the Bloodcloak Pavilion obviously has unimaginable benefits, and the strength of the Bloodcloak Pavilion has slowly risen in recent years. Nangongzhi naturally also placed his sister, Mashiro, Little Linger, Uchiha Fugaku couple, and Yuri Koyuri in the headquarters of the Bloodcloak Pavilion. It stands to reason that Nangongzhi should be in the Bloodcloak Pavilion at this time to deal with all kinds of problems arising from the rapid development of the Bloodcloak Pavilion, but Nangongzhi left the Bloodcloak Pavilion and came to this very remote wave country. Now the place where Nangongzhi is staying is one of the many medical centers opened by the Aoki Temple of the Bloodcloak Pavilion in the wave country. The reason why Nangongzhi came here is naturally because Naruto has become an official ninja not long ago, and he formed a team with Sasuke and Sakura. It really makes people feel like God is playing with them. What's more coincidental is that Hatake Kakashi is the Jonin guiding the three of them. It must be Watergate's arrangement, right? Nangongja was actually preparing to go directly to the Wood Leaf. In the information received by Nangongja, he found that the original member of the Akatsuki, Orochimaru, seemed to have some changes. The Otogakure established by Orochimaru in the Land of Rice seems to be very unusual during this period of time. Nangongja attaches great importance to all the information about the Akatsuki. Although everyone said that Orochimaru defected from the Akatsuki, defecting doesn't make him an enemy, right? With Orochimaru's strength and his almost crazy dedication to research, Nangongja felt that Orochimaru must have a certain connection with the Akatsuki. Even in the Otogakure village created by Orochimaru, the spies of the Blood Cloak Pavilion found many members of the Akatsuki. So, Nangongja came to the Land of Woods ninja to meet with several Woodleaf ninja who had a close relationship with him. Of the ninja, of the ninja world, of the world to the ninja world, to the and of the village. Of the village of the three ninja days of the ninja days of the ninja off the ninja, to the of the village of the village of the village of ninjto the village of ninja of the Nangongja casually strolled on the streets of the Land of Wave. Suddenly, a ragged man who looked like he didn't have a good life saluted Nangongja and said, "Hello, uncle. A few days ago, you came to our Greenwood Hall to prescribe medicine. I don't know if your cold is better." Nangongja smiled and said to the ragged uncle. The uncle was obviously very happy. He said to Nangongja honestly, "It's much better now. It turns out that our place is very poor. Even the barefoot doctors don't want to come to our poor place. Since the Greenwood Hall was built here a few years ago, they often prescribe medicine for us for free. We are really grateful to you. Nangong-san, please express our gratitude to the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion on behalf of us poor people." Greenwood Hall was naturally the plan that Nangongja proposed at the meeting to help the Greenwood altar generate income, but later, the Blood Cloak Pavilion made some slight adjustments to Greenwood Hall. The current Greenwood Hall was more like a charity organization. While acting as a medical center, Greenwood Hall would occasionally treat some poor people without asking for anything in return. In the beginning, the Blood Cloak Pavilion naturally spent a lot of money in such a charity organization, but later, the poor people who received free treatment from Greenwood Hall spontaneously promoted the Blood Cloak Pavilion behind Greenwood Hall. This was also the reason why the Blood Cloak Pavilion could quickly become famous in the ninja world. That's natural. If there is a chance, I will definitely express my gratitude to the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Nangongja smiled at the uncle. The loveliest and most pitiful people in the world are always such ordinary people who are struggling to survive at the bottom of society but don't dare to violate the boundary of the law. Uncle, do you know anything about Uncle Danas? He has been in the Woodleaf for almost a month. He should be back by now. In the Wave Country, almost no one didn't know Danas. He was a stubborn old man. In the face of the economic blockade from Kado, the people of the Wave Country became more and more poor, but Danas was willing to put his life on the opposite side of Kado. With an insufficient salary, he went to the Woodleaf to find a ninja in the Woodleaf to protect him until the completion of the Wave Country Bridge. Fortunately, he met a team like Kakashi and Naruto, otherwise, Danas might have been left behind on the way back to the Wave Country. Nangongja stayed in the Woodleaf for a long time. If he met a ninja with a bad temper, no one would say anything even if he directly cut Danas into pieces. Just as the abject uncle was about to say something, a small dock in the Wave Nation became noisy. A lot of people surrounded the pier, but no one dared to step forward. The position of the pier was empty. It seems that Danas is back. Nangongja naturally understood Dana's situation. Everyone in the Wave Country supported Dana's in their hearts. But no matter how much he supported Dana's in his heart, he didn't dare to show it. Because as long as he confirmed the close relationship between him and Dana's, it was simply putting his neck under the knife of a dictatorial businessman like Kato. Not many people will do something that endangers their life when they are forced into a desperate situation. Nangongja went to the back of the crowd and stretched out his hand to ask the people in front of him to make way for him. After the people in front of Nangongja saw Nangongja's face, they all respectfully called, "Mr. Nangong," and made way for him. Nangongja quickly reached the innermost circle and saw the unconscious Kakashi on the boat, as well as the anxious Naruto and others. After taking a few steps forward, Nangongja came to their side. "Mr. Nangong. Uncle Nangong. To Nangong, sensei." The few of them praised Nangongja in such a manner. Chapter 252. Dana's looked at the three children, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura in surprise. Along the way, everyone had experienced a lot of things, so they had a certain degree of understanding of each other. The three children had lived in Woodleaf Village since they were young, but they actually knew a person in a clinic in their own country? Wasn't it obvious that Nangongja was from Woodleaf? Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were also very surprised. Since Nangongja left Woodleaf a few years ago, there was no news about Nangongja at all. Although the three of them knew that with Nangongja's strength, he would definitely not encounter any danger. But after all, Nangongja was a close person to them. Even if they knew that nothing would happen to him, they still couldn't help but worry about his safety. But no one expected that this familiar person who they hadn't seen for several years would actually appear at their mission destination. It was really a pleasant surprise. Uncle Nangong, Kakashi-sensei fought with a fierce-looking guy without eyebrows before. In order to protect us, he fell into a coma after the battle. Uncle Nangong, can you help us save Kakashi-sensei? Naruto looked at Nangongja and suddenly remembered that when he was young, Nangongja could light up his hand with a green light once he was injured. His wound would be healed immediately. Now that he saw Nangongja, he naturally hoped that Nangongja could help him save Kakashi. When Dana's heard Naruto's words, he also looked at Nangongja with a hopeful face. Although he knew that Nangongja was actually from Woodleaf, Nangongja had never shown his strength in front of him. This ninja named Kakashi defeated the powerful ninja named Momochi Zabuza. If Nangongja could save Kakashi, it would be the best thing. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura, don't worry. I'll check on Kakashi first to see what's going on. Nangongja smiled and said to Naruto and the others. Then he took a few steps forward and walked to Kakashi, who was lying in the boat. He put his hand on Kakashi's wrist, and a strand of internal force sneaked into the meridians of Kakashi's hand. The internal force flowed along the meridians in Kakashi's body a few times, and Nangongja also opened his closed eyes. It's okay, Kakashi just consumed a little too much energy. Rest well for a period of time, and then take some medicine, and you will be able to recover. Nangongja said to Naruto and the others with a smile, then he waved his hand, you guys help me carry Kakashi to Aoki Tang. The environment there is better, and it is convenient for me to observe Kakashi's situation at any time. Hearing Nangongja's words, Naruto and Sasuke also came to Kakashi's side. Each of them grabbed one of Kakashi's arms and helped Kakashi up. Following Nangongja's footsteps, they walked to the door of Aoki Tang, a medical hall set up by Aoki Tang in the country of Wave. A strong medicinal fragrance came from the medical hall. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all frowned slightly. After all, the smell of Chinese medicine was not so good. Naruto looked at Nangongja with an unhappy face and said, Uncle Nangong, what is this smell? It smells so bad. Cough cough. As he spoke, Naruto actually coughed, which was really funny. This is the smell of decocting medicine. Not everyone can afford a rare number of medical ninjas. This herb is used by ordinary people to treat diseases. Wood leaf contains purified tablets and pills. Naturally, you have not smelled this smell, so naturally, you are not so used to it. Naruto and Sasuke didn't say anything. They nodded casually and left this matter behind. But Sakura seemed to have been thinking about something. Along the way, Sakura was almost taken care of by Naruto and Sasuke. Even when fighting with Zabuza, Sakura could only guard Sakura from the back, which made Sakura feel very useless. When Nangongja talked about such medical methods and medical ninjas, Sakura also felt that she should work hard in this direction. Of course, these were some of Sakura's own conjectures, and she hasn't really understood it yet. The sun sets in the west, and the moon rises in the east. Time passed so quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sun in the sky had already set in the west, and a round jade plate was hanging in the sky like a sparkling crystal. Cough cough, Kakashi was lying on the bed and suddenly coughed. After a while, he opened his eyes. Looking at the strange ceiling and some bandages on his body, Kakashi naturally knew that he was brought to the Wave Country by Naruto and received some treatment. Although he was also very puzzled in his heart that there was such a standard medical center in a poor country like the Wave Country, but now that he was in a safe place, Kakashi also relaxed a little. Oh! Kakashi, have you already woken up? I thought you would sleep for a while. A slightly surprised voice sounded. Kakashi felt that it was familiar, so he tilted his head and saw a familiar figure holding a tray with a bowl of porridge on it. Nangongja? Kakashi said with some doubts. Although Nangongja stayed in the wood leaf for a long time, Kakashi was active as an Umbu ninja in the Umbu department. Naturally, he rarely went home. Nangongja also lived in seclusion. The two lived very close to each other, but they didn't meet each other. Later, when Kakashi knew that Nangongja had returned, Nangongja had already left the wood leaf, so naturally, they didn't have the opportunity to meet. He didn't expect that after Nangongja left the wood leaf for nearly 2 years, the two could meet again. Speaking of which, Kakashi, you haven't been doing well in these years. A rebellious ninja in the water country forced you to this point. At the beginning, I said that I hope you can inherit White Fang Senpai's kenjutsu well. I don't know if you heard me or not. Nangongja casually sat on Kakashi's bed and handed the porridge in his hand to Kakashi. As if he was teaching his disobedient younger brother, he said this to Kakashi from the beginning. Chapter 253. After hearing Nangongja's words, Kakashi didn't feel uncomfortable in his heart. After all, compared to himself, Nangongja was more like his father's disciple. Although Nangongja didn't learn Hataki Jutsu, his father has always tried his best to guide Nangongja. Nangongja can be said to have a deep relationship with Hataki Jutsu. He and Nangongja can be regarded as brothers, so Nangongja didn't say anything about him. How could it be? I did decide to use the eye given to me by Obito to witness the changes in the world, but after talking with you before, I didn't relax my Hataki Jutsu. When I fought with Zabuza, I knew that I could defeat him without using Hataki Jutsu. I also determined that Zabuza was dead, so I deliberately fell into a coma to sharpen these children. Kakashi said with a serious face, as if he wanted to prove that what he said was true. However, Nangongja stretched out his hand and pressed on Kakashi's wound. In an instant, Kakashi began to grimace, and even the porridge in his hand almost fell. Look at you. How dare you say that you've calculated everything clearly? However, Nangongja obviously didn't intend to entangle with Kakashi for too long on this issue. Instead, he asked Kakashi, "Are you sure you didn't kill him?" Of course, his throat was directly pierced by a senbon. Then he was killed by the Umbu of the mist. While talking, Kakashi's face also had a trace of doubt. The Umbu recovered the body of a ninja? But which Umbu would directly take away the whole body of a ninja? It seems that you have figured it out. When I and Naruto learned about the situation, I heard them say that the Umbu of the Mist took away all the body of Zabuza. I felt that there was something strange about it. It seems that this Zabuza still left himself a way out, and he won't die so easily. Nangongja also looked at Kakashi and said, "This is really troublesome." Although Kakashi was wearing a mask, Nangongja could still clearly see the expression on Kakashi's face at the moment. Zabuza will definitely come back, but now the injuries on my body and the overdraft of my spiritual power can't be healed in a short time. I still have to find some ways to protect the smooth construction of the Wave Country Bridge. While talking, Kakashi's gaze turned to Nangongja, who was sitting on his side. This person is much more powerful than himself. Wouldn't it be a waste if they didn't make good use of such a powerful force? Hey, don't look at me. This battle and this mission belong to you. All I can guarantee is that during this time, I will try my best to make your injuries heal faster. Don't think about me doing other things. You should know what my relationship with Woodleaf is. I have no obligation to help you perform the mission. Kakashi, as a fourth-generation disciple, naturally knew some things about Nangongja and Woodleaf. Nangongja didn't want to help him defeat Zabuza. This matter must have been settled. Moreover, for Kakashi, he actually hoped that he could defeat Zabuza himself. If he didn't defeat Zabuza, presumably Kakashi's heart would be very uncomfortable. But Nangongja's words turned, "Naruto's 3 children, I can still help you train them. At the beginning, I just helped Naruto and Sakura lay some foundation. As for Sasuke, I only taught some concepts and thoughts about swordsmanship. Now that it has been so long, they are still so weak. It really hurts my face. So, these few disciples of yours, I will help you train them well." When Kakashi heard Nangongja's words, he also looked embarrassed. He was indeed a little lazy before, and he didn't teach Naruto any combat skills. When he fought with Zabuza before, the level of taijutsu displayed by Naruto and Sasuke also surprised Kakashi. But since they were taught by Nangongja, it naturally made sense. Then I will leave it to you. These children are actually very talented, but their hearts are not so serious. If you can help me teach them, it would be great. If Zabuza really comes later, I think he can also play some role. Okay, then you take a rest. I will arrange for some medicine to be sent to you regularly to treat mental overdraft and recuperate the body. You don't have to worry about those children. I will help you train them well." Nangongja waved his hand and said to Kakashi. Nangongja's face had a very strange smile. Kakashi, who had been with Nangongja for so long, naturally knew some of Nangongja's bad taste. Was my decision to let Nangongja teach Naruto and the others a bit too hasty? Kakashi secretly asked himself, but he quickly threw these thoughts to the back of his mind. Anyway, he did not become Nangongja's plaything. Naruto and the others had to bear the bitterness of growing up. After thinking about this, Kakashi put the bowl of porridge in his hand that had been finished on the small cabinet next to him. Nangongja and Kakashi were still talking just now. He did not see Kakashi take off his mask. When did he finish this bowl of porridge? Nangongja walked out of the room where Kakashi rested, and also called Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, the 3 children. I discussed with Kakashi before, and thought that maybe Zabuza did not die, but was rescued by someone who pretended to be an Umbu. Once Zabuza recovered from his injuries, he will definitely come back here to stop the Wave Country from building the bridge. So, I will train you for a period of time in the future, so that your combat ability will be improved. Hearing Nangongja's words, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura's faces became extremely strange in an instant. It was an expression of joy and sadness. The 3 of them were trained by Nangongja. Naturally, they were very clear about how much benefit Nangongja's training could bring to them, but every time Nangongja trained people, he always came up with a lot of bad ideas, which made them very uncomfortable. Chapter 254. The next day. Taiyang was still sleeping comfortably in his bed. It was only 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sky was almost dark. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were all neatly dressed and standing at the door of Aokido, checking their equipment and waiting for Nangongja to guide their practice. However, they were a group of 11 or 12 years old children, so it was inevitable that they would still be a little sleepy after getting up so early. Naruto couldn't help but complain, "What is Nangong uncle doing? He asked us to gather so early, but he hasn't come yet. If I knew earlier, I would have slept in bed for 10 more minutes before getting up, so that I could rest for a while." Although Sakura didn't speak, anyone with a discerning eye could see the bitterness in her eyes. Sakura actually had a little complaint. Now that Naruto said what he wanted to say, he silently praised himself in his heart. Sasuke glanced at Naruto, who was complaining, and said coldly, "Fool." As a person who often asked himself to get up early to exercise, Sasuke actually performed much better than Naruto and Sakura. Nangongja had trained Sasuke before. Unlike Sakura and Naruto's basic training, Nangongja's training for Sasuke was much stricter. Not to mention getting up early in the morning, even if there was no way to rest for several days in a row, such things had happened before. It was precisely because of this experience that Sasuke understood the benefits that Nangongja's training could bring him. "Sasuke, what are you talking about, you arrogant guy? Don't think that I didn't see that you just yawned behind our backs." Naruto looked at Sasuke with a smirk, as if he was grabbing Sasuke's pigtail. Hearing Naruto's words, Sakura also secretly looked at Sasuke with her eyes, as if she was hoping to see Sasuke yawning. But then Sakura looked at Naruto with an angry face and said, "Naruto, what are you talking about? How could Sasuke do such a rude thing? I think it's you who did it." Sakura was secretly excited in her heart. Hey, I helped Sasuke to smooth things over, I must have left a good impression on him." This kind of behavior would score very high in Xiao Ying's eyes. Just when the children seemed to quarrel again, Nangongja's voice sounded behind them. "Looks like you guys are in good spirits. I thought you guys would be sleepy since you woke up so early. But since you're already so energetic, then I have nothing to worry about. Let's start training now." Seeing Nangongja coming from behind them, Naruto was puzzled. "Uncle, why did you come from there?" "It's nothing, I went to the place where you will be training in advance to help you arrange it. It's convenient for our training in a while." Nangongja smiled and looked very kind. But Naruto felt that something was wrong. Arranged in advance? Didn't that mean that they would have to face all kinds of traps set up by their uncle, who was full of bad taste? This was really not good. If it weren't for Nangongja looking at him, Naruto wanted to run away now. Nangongja waved his hand and motioned the children to go with him. With the speed of a ninja, they quickly arrived in the forest of the wave country far away from the coast. "I don't practice chakra, so if you want me to teach you how to use ninjutsu, don't even think about it. But whether it's chakra or the internal force that I practice, it's actually a kind of energy. What I want to teach you is to control the energy in your body, so that you can use the least amount of energy to achieve the best effect." Nangongja said, and he had already walked in front of a big tree. Ninjas often achieve the effect of controlling the energy in their body through some training. Although my internal force is very different from chakra, it's common in some places. For example, like now. While Nangongja was talking to Naruto, his feet had already stepped on the trunk of the tree. At the bottom of Nangongja's shoes, an imperceptible internal force was attached to it. Nangongja's body directly stood vertically on the trunk as if it was free from gravity. "I use internal force to achieve this effect, it will cause a lot of consumption, so I usually don't do this. But chakra still has its own advantages in this regard, so this training method is suitable for you. You can give it a try." That's right, Nangongja wants to teach Naruto, one of the more practical skills of a ninja, tree climbing. Nangongja only helped Naruto, Sakura, and taught Sasuke about swordsmanship. This kind of energy control practice is the first time for him, so naturally, he has to start with the most basic tree climbing. With that, Nangongja hung his whole body on a branch, and began to slowly explain to Naruto some of the precautions and energy use methods of tree climbing. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sasuke were all confused, and didn't know whether they understood or not. Nangongja jumped down from the trunk, went to the side, and took out his own green jade gourd, as if waiting for Naruto and Sasuke to practice by themselves. Looking at Nangongja's appearance, Naruto and Sasuke naturally knew that they couldn't count on Nangongja to teach them such practice step by step. So they stood in the same place, closed their eyes, and seemed to be thinking about what Nangongja just said. Finally, Sakura was the first to open her eyes, but found that whether it was Naruto or Sasuke, both of them still closed their eyes and pondered. In her eyes, there was an irrepressible joy. Sure enough, I have my own outstanding points. Sakura looked at Nangongja, who was sitting under a tree and drinking wine by himself, and secretly encouraged herself in her heart. She must let Uncle Nangong see her power. She walked to a relatively tall tree, and very carefully attached her chakra to her feet. Sakura tentatively stepped on the trunk with her feet, and well, the point of force was very stable. Sakura's legs exerted force, and her whole body was almost standing on the trunk almost vertically. Although Naruto and Sasuke already had a certain idea in their hearts, now that they saw Sakura starting to try, they naturally turned their eyes to Sakura. Even Nangongja had already quietly looked at Sakura's movements with his own eyes. Chapter 255. Unsurprisingly, Sakura's first attempt ended in failure. Sakura was actually very serious in controlling her chakra, but suddenly a gust of wind blew past her. The morning wind was naturally a little cold, and Sakura couldn't help but shiver, and goosebumps appeared all over her body. Such a change naturally made Sakura's careful control of chakra instantly become unstable. Too much chakra directly stepped on the trunk, and Sakura lost her balance and fell to the ground. She rubbed her butt on the ground. The burning sensation of her butt being smashed into 8 pieces made Xiaofan involuntarily recall the feeling of being spanked by her mother when she was disobedient when she was young. This was really a different approach to achieve the same result. Turning her head to look at Naruto and Sasuke, Sakura instantly felt bad. Sasuke was still able to control his emotions, but looking at Naruto's appearance, that kind of distorted face was simply trying to hold back his laughter, but he couldn't hold it in any longer. Disgusting. Sakura glanced at Naruto, and said very angrily to Naruto. Naruto was also a little stunned by Sakura's scolding. How did I offend Sakura? I obviously tried so hard to give Sakura face, and tried so hard to hold back my laughter, but now I have to continue to be scolded? Just as he was about to talk back, Sakura went to the side of the tree and prepared to continue climbing. Naruto could only close his eyes in anger, and continue to think about some of the climbing skills that Nangongja just said. Don't know how long it took. Naruto was sleepy, and there was a big snot bubble hanging on his nose. With Naruto's inhalation and exhalation, it was constantly expanding and shrinking. Just when Naruto was still sleeping, thinking very seriously, a scream went into Naruto's ears. Obviously, it was Sakura's scream. The snot bubble on Naruto's nose burst in an instant, and Naruto directly jumped up from his cross-legged state. What's wrong? What's wrong? Is Zabuza here? Naruto asked anxiously, but looking around, he didn't see Zabuza at all. Nangongja was still sitting under a tree and drinking by himself. Sasuke had also begun to practice climbing trees by himself, but Sakura sat on the ground. Whether it was her clothes or hair, they were a little wet, and some of her hair was still dripping with water. Moving the time forward a few minutes. After many attempts, Sakura finally stood next to the tree crown with her own efforts. Looking at Sasuke, who was still working hard under another tree, and Naruto, who seemed to have fallen asleep, Sakura's heart couldn't help but have a little bit of pride. Although she didn't play a big role on the way to the wave country, but now such a training, whether it was Naruto, who was at the bottom of her class, or Sasuke, who had always been outstanding, they were not as good as her. Her girlish temperament naturally made Sakura feel very happy. But just when Sakura was still happy, she didn't know that a lot of water was splashed, and it directly drenched Sakura from head to toe. Even the wind in this forest couldn't bear the loneliness, and a small wind blew, directly making Sakura feel extremely cold. Naturally, under such circumstances, Sakura also lost precise control of chakra under her feet, and directly fell from the tree crown to the ground. That soreness far exceeded the feeling he had when he had only climbed halfway before falling down. It seemed that she had gradually recovered. Sakura limped to Nangongja's side. She directly stretched out her fist and directly hammered Nangongja's head. But after all, Nangongja's strength was there, and when Sakura's fist was about to hit Nangongja's body, Nangongja relied on his own speed to dodge Sakura's punch. "You bastard, what are you doing? I am a girl. How can you treat me like this?" Sakura looked at her soaked clothes and dripping wet hair, and forgot to use honorifics, and directly shouted at Nangongja. "So scary, so scary." The current Xiaoying was almost exactly the same as when she had angered Xiaoying to the point of anger. Naruto could only cover his eyes, and desperately told himself that this Sakura wasn't the cutest girl he liked the most, but a stranger. "I am good enough to you, if you don't believe me. Look." Nangongja looked at Sakura's angry face, and he was very happy, as if his prank was successful, with a strange smile on his face. Looking at the direction Nangongja's finger was pointing, Sasuke had climbed almost 2/3 of the way to the tree trunk. Suddenly, a few shurikens flew towards Sasuke. If such an attack was on the ground, Sasuke would have hundreds of ways to deal with it, but he was on a tree trunk after all, so he couldn't do it so easily. So Sasuke could only withdraw the chakra under his feet so that he could avoid the shurikens shooting towards him. Sakura looked at Nangongja, and she couldn't help but mutter to herself, "Nangong-san, you are actually a hidden sadist, right?" Nangongja acted like he didn't hear Sakura's words clearly, and he dug his ears and said to Sakura, "Sakura, what did you say?" "Uncle's ears seemed to be uncomfortable just now, so I didn't hear it clearly. Can you say it again?" "This time. Uncle will definitely do it." "Fine. Listen." Looking at Nangongja's smiling face, Sakura only felt a chill coming from her body. This kind of chill was more piercing than being soaked and blown by the wind, so Sakura could only stiffly squeeze out a smile on her face, and said to Nangongja, "Nothing, Uncle Nangong-san. I was just encouraging myself, and I must not disappoint Uncle's trust. I'm going to climb the tree now." Naruto looked at Nangongja and Sakura, and thought about the attack that Sasuke faced just now. Will I have to face such difficulties and tricks when I climb the tree later? No. This world is so scary. At this time, Nangongja suddenly picked up a stone from the ground, and with a flick of his finger, it directly hit Naruto's forehead. "How is it? You have been thinking for so long, why don't you climb the tree? If you can't complete this training, Uncle will take good care of you." Naruto touched his swollen forehead, and looked at the sky with a hopeless expression. His face that was looking at the sky at a 45-degree angle seemed to be lamenting the horror and injustice of this world. Chapter 256. Boom! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground sounded. Naruto rubbed his butt and looked at the big tree in front of him with a sad expression. After Sakura was tricked by Nangongja, it was obvious that she was more vigilant in her heart. It didn't take long for her to be able to walk on the big tree skillfully and avoid some of the small traps set by Nangongja. Even Sasuke, after climbing the tree many times, was able to avoid the shurikens that were shot at him and stood on the tip of the big tree smoothly. Am I really not as good as Sakura and Sasuke? Was he really at the bottom of the pack? Naruto didn't want to bear such a name, but he could only climb half of the tree, and the chakra in his body would go out of control. Naruto's body now had not only half of the Nine Tails chakra, but the entire Nine Tails was sealed in his body. Even if some of the chakra escaped from the seal in his body, it would have a great impact on Naruto's control of chakra. Hey! Idiot! It's dark, let's go back. You can't practice tree climbing in a hurry, just come back tomorrow. Sasuke stood beside Naruto and said to Naruto. Although his tone seemed to be very disdainful of Naruto, it was obvious that Sasuke also cared about Naruto in his own way. Everyone had something they were good at, but they also had their own shortcomings. Naruto's talent in taijutsu was obvious to all, even if the progress of tree climbing was not so smooth, it didn't matter. Sasuke also understood Naruto's slightly delicate and sensitive mood, so he opened his mouth to persuade Naruto. Hearing Sasuke's words, Naruto seemed very happy. After getting along with Sasuke for so long, Naruto was also very clear about Sasuke's awkward behavior. Although Sasuke's temperament has changed a lot after being guided by Nangongja, after all, it was a person's way of doing things, so it didn't change much. His partner comforted him, which made Naruto feel very happy. With a bright smile on his face, he said to Sasuke, "It's okay, Sasuke, you go back first. Tell Uncle Nangong that I need to practice a little more, I must let Uncle Nangong see the world, hee." Hearing Naruto's words, Naruto's face was swept away. Sasuke also felt relieved, but he still turned to Naruto and said, "Don't worry. I don't care, just remember to go back." After that, Sasuke's sway, Naruto looked at Sasuke's back and smiled, then he turned his eyes to the big tree in front of him again. His eyes became firm again, Naruto carefully controlled the chakra in his body and attached it to his feet, and once again began to fight with the big tree in front of him. He couldn't remember how many times he tried to climb this big tree, he only remembered that he rushed towards the big tree again, and from time to time, some shurikens flew towards him. In the end, even the shuriken's attack was gone. Presumably, he didn't know how many times he tried, but the shuriken set by Uncle Nangong had been exhausted. Naruto became very happy because of such a thing. Even Uncle Nangong didn't expect him to persist to this point, right? Finally, Naruto climbed to the top of the big tree. Naruto was just about to walk in the direction of Greenwood Hall, but the soreness and fatigue on his body finally defeated his firm will. The moment before Naruto fainted, he was still silently imagining the expression of Uncle Nangong when he saw that he had completed the training. The night passed like this, the morning dew condensed on Naruto's body on the ground. A woman with long black hair wearing a kimono unknowingly came to Naruto's side. The woman's pair of black eyes kept wandering around the forehead protector on Naruto's forehead and his neck. But in the end, she shook her head, as if to expel the distracting thoughts in her heart. She gently squatted beside Naruto, stretched out her tender white jade-like palm, and gently patted Naruto's face. A gentle and ethereal voice came from the woman's mouth, "Don't worry. Little brother, wake up. Who would catch a cold here? It's better to go home quickly." Naruto seemed to feel that someone was calling him. He tried hard to open his eyes, only to see a very beautiful girl squatting beside him and looking at him. The morning light seemed to turn into beautiful ribbons against the morning mist, revealing the beauty of the woman in front of him. "Sister?" Naruto didn't know the girl in front of him, but he still opened his mouth and said. Hearing Naruto's address, the girl seemed to be a little happy, her mouth curved into a beautiful arc, like the sun, making people's heart feel very warm. "Little brother, why did you fall asleep in the forest so early?" The girl seemed to be a little puzzled and said to Naruto. "Me? I'm completing the training. After the training, I can become stronger." Naruto scratched his head and seemed to be a little embarrassed to say to the girl. But the determination to become stronger in his eyes was so obvious, his pair of eyes instantly turned into a bright and dazzling gem. "But little brother, aren't you already very strong?" why do you have to train so hard? The girl's question seemed to have caught Naruto's attention. In Naruto's mind, he suddenly remembered his mother's tired face in order to protect him when he was a child. Naruto opened his mouth and said to the girl, "In order to protect the people I care about the most, I will definitely become stronger." Hearing Naruto's words, the girl's eyes became sharp in an instant. The people I care about? The girl's eyes swept through the 2 bags of herbs in her hands that she bought from Greenwood Hall. That's right, I must protect the people I care about the most. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not hesitate. The girl stood up from her squatting position, tidied up her kimono with her hands, and smiled at Naruto and said, "I believe that you will become strong enough to protect everything you want to protect. After all, your current resolute heart is the most powerful force for you." Naruto seemed to want to say something, but the girl had already turned around and walked far away. Naruto also shook off the morning dew on his body and hurriedly walked in the direction of Greenwood Hall, wanting to tell his uncle Nangong that he had completed the training. Chapter 257. Nangongja looked at the account book in front of him. Previously, a girl came to the Greenwood Hall and bought a lot of herbs. Although there were many kinds of herbs, the staff in the medical hall found that most of them were used to treat internal and external injuries. So he didn't dare to delay and reported this news to Nangongja. Nangongja actually had a guess in his heart. This girl must be with Zabuza, who was injured by Kakashi and faked his death. But since this was Kakashi's task, Nangongja was too lazy to intervene. He let Kakashi solve it himself. Uncle, I finished the training." When Nangongja was still thoughtfully flipping through the account book in front of him, Naruto's voice had already come from afar. After a while, Naruto had already arrived in front of Nangongja. His eyes were a little red and swollen, and there were some dark circles. His head was covered with morning dew, and there were some grass clippings on his body. But Naruto's spirit was excellent. His bright smile seemed to make Nangongja's mood better. "It's good that you're back. Hurry up and change your clothes and take a shower. You must be tired after working hard for a night." For Nangongja, Naruto was like his own nephew. Seeing that Naruto could cultivate so hard, Nangongja was actually very gratified in his heart. So he said to Naruto very gently, "I got it, uncle." Naruto responded and walked inside the Greenwood Hall. Apparently, he listened to Nangongja's suggestion and was ready to have a good rest. Not long after Naruto left, Kakashi had already walked out of the inner hall. Nangongja also saw Kakashi's figure. Since Kakashi could walk out, it was naturally not a big problem. "How is your recovery?" Nangongja asked Kakashi. "There is no problem with my body. After 1 or 2 days of rest, my strength will be completely recovered. At that time, I will go to the bridge construction site with Danas to protect them during the bridge construction." Kakashi moved his legs as if he wanted to prove that he had almost recovered. Then, he told Nangongja his plan. "Since you have already planned it, then I naturally have nothing to say. Solve the problem here as soon as possible, and I will go back to Woodleaf with you. There is some news that I want to tell Watergate personally." Nangongja did not elaborate on what news he wanted to tell Watergate, but it was definitely something important. Therefore, Kakashi's face became serious and said to Nangongja, "In that case, I will help them complete the bridge construction as soon as possible. When the time comes, we will go back to Woodleaf together. Yabuki and some other people have been waiting for you to go back to Woodleaf." Kakashi obviously knew Sakura's mother, Yabuki, so he said this to Nangongja. Kakashi's words were actually to let Nangongja go back to Woodleaf with peace of mind. Nangongja also nodded and did not comment on Kakashi's suggestion. Seeing that Nangongja did not intend to express his intentions, Kakashi did not say much, but returned to the inner hall. It seemed that he wanted to train his 3 disciples again. Time passed quickly. When Kakashi fully recovered, he took Sasuke and Sakura to the bridge under construction. Naruto was left behind by Kakashi to take care of Dana's daughter and grandson. Maybe it's because Nangong Zetsu reminded Naruto about the nature of Gato, who hired Zabuza, and the relationship between Naruto and Dana's son Z. The bridge's construction period has reached the final stage, and the bridge can be completely built and put into use. Dana's weathered face couldn't help but smile. His motherland was finally saved. But a thick fog quickly shrouded the place where Kakashi and Dana's were. This unusually thick fog made Kakashi and Dana's involuntarily think of Zabuza, who attacked them in the forest. Sakura. You follow Uncle Dana's and protect his safety. Sasuke and I are ready to face the enemy. Zabuza is coming. Sakura and Sasuke reacted quickly. One of them hurriedly went to Dana's side and pulled out a kunai from the ninja tool bag behind him and held it in his hand. He looked around him very vigilantly. Sasuke also went to Kakashi's side and was ready to fight. Would leaf cloning ninja Kakashi, last time was the first time I encountered such a tricky Kekii Genkai like Sharingan, and you were lucky enough to win. This time, I will definitely take the life of the old man Dana's, and also take the lives of several of your disciples and yourself. A slightly ethereal voice came from the thick fog, and Kakashi also looked serious, revealing his eyes covered by the forehead protector. The Scarlet 3 Tomo Sharingan seemed to exude a light that even the mist concealment jutsu couldn't block. Everyone can boast. My life, my disciples' life and my client's life are all at stake here. If you're really as powerful as you say, why don't you try to see if you can do what you've said? That's right. Kakashi said with some contempt, but his serious eyes showed that he had already regarded Zabuza as his enemy. Whiz! The sound of a sharp weapon cutting through the air came, and Sasuke quickly shot the senbon that was shot towards him to the ground. A figure with a mist umbu mask appeared in front of everyone. His hand movements were obviously telling Kakashi that these senbon were shot by him. Haku. Are you out of practice? Zabuza's bandaged figure emerged from the thick fog, and he looked at the masked figure standing beside him with some blame. No, Zabuza-sama. I deliberately tested this person's skill. Now it seems that it's just so. I will take him down soon. Haku's ethereal voice also reached Sasuke's ears, and a touch of anger floated from Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke had his own pride, and being insulted like this made Sasuke feel very angry. But such anger didn't make Sasuke lose control, instead, it made him more serious. I must let this person who looked down on me know what kind of power I, a person who doesn't seem to have any ability in his eyes, have. Chapter 258. Just when Sasuke was secretly planning to let Haku see his strength, Haku's figure was in a trance in Sasuke's eyes. His figure instantly blurred, and Sasuke felt a cold feeling behind his head, so he quickly jumped forward. While jumping forward, Sasuke's body also turned around, and a kunai shot out from Sasuke's hand. That's right, it was Haku who appeared behind Sasuke. After Haku shot down Sasuke's kunai with his senbon, he said to Sasuke with some appreciation, Haku, Sasuke. You've really grown a lot. When Zabuza ambushed Dana's in the forest, Haku had been observing from the side, so he had his own considerations for Sasuke. Sasuke's current level was obviously higher than what he saw before. Woodleaf Ninja, sure enough, had a very good foundation. After receiving appropriate training, their strength will improve significantly. But, this was still not enough. Haku put one hand on his chest, and the other hand kept blocking Sasuke's shuriken. A cold and ethereal voice sounded in Sasuke's ear, Ice Release, 1,000 Flying Water Kill. When Haku's voice sounded, a mass of water floated in front of Haku, and it quickly turned into slender icicles that shot towards Sasuke. Sasuke kept shooting kunai just now in the hope that Haku could use ninjutsu. After all, he was just a genin. If a ninjutsu duel really started, Sasuke's strength would not be Haku's opponent. But once the most basic taijutsu battle starts, with Sasuke's taijutsu and kenjutsu from Nangongja, Sasuke still has hope of winning. Kakashi watched Haku complete the hand seals with one hand, and even launched a difficult ninjutsu. He was very surprised. This ninjutsu with one hand? Kakashi had seen ninjutsu without seals, but it was the first time for him to see Haku complete the hand seals and launch ninjutsu with one hand. When Zabuza saw Kakashi's astonishment, he smiled disdainfully and said to Kakashi, "You still have the time to pay attention to other battles? With your disciple's strength, I will be able to take him down very quickly. Instead of worrying about your disciple's safety, you might as well worry about yourself, because your life is in my hands." After saying this sentence, Zabuza's figure disappeared from Kakashi's line of sight. Even though Kakashi was very careful about his surroundings, he still couldn't detect Zabuza's figure and aura. This is Zabuza's specialty, silent killing technique. Kakashi seemed to be aware of something. He threw the shuriken in his hand to his left, but suddenly, Zabuza's figure appeared behind Kakashi. He raised his huge beheading sword and slashed towards Kakashi. Feeling the threat from behind, Kakashi quickly bent his body and dodged in front of him. Zabuza's sword almost fell on Kakashi's body. With a cruel smile on his face, Zabuza once again blended into the thick fog. His ethereal voice once again passed into Kakashi's ears. "Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. This time, you are lucky to be able to avoid my attack. But you can avoid it once, or twice, but can you guarantee that you will never make any mistakes? Once you make a mistake, your life will be taken by me, and everything you have will become an undead whose name will be pulled out of this ninja manual in my hand." The battle between ninjas is not only closely related to personal strength, but also the confrontation between the minds of each other. This was Zabuza's style. He constantly pressured his opponent with his words, and then used his dense murderous aura to attack his opponent's mind. When his opponent's mind was distracted, it was the moment he took his opponent's life. Facing Zabuza's silent killing technique, Kakashi actually couldn't think of a way to break the situation for a while. He could only stabilize his mind and try his best to resist the attack from Zabuza. In fact, Sasuke's current situation is not so good, because Haku's speed is a bit too fast. While his figure is constantly flickering, there will be senbonzen shooting towards him, and the angles are very tricky. Even if Sasuke has tried his best to resist the senbonzen shooting towards him, he still suffered some injuries. Although it is not fatal, it also greatly affects Sasuke's flexibility. Let me end the battle as soon as possible, and then help Zabuza-sama to defeat Hatake Kakashi. Haku looked at Sasuke, but in fact, his mind has drifted to Kakashi, who is fighting with Zabuza. After all, Kakashi's strength is obvious to all, and Zabuza can now suppress Kakashi with the advantage of the environment. But once this famous wood-leaf ninja thinks of a way to break the situation, Zabuza's life will become very dangerous. Therefore, Haku decided to solve this kid in front of him as soon as possible, and then help Zabuza-sama. Both hands were placed on his chest, and for the first time, Haku began to use both hands to make hand seals. Sasuke's heart was alert. After all, Haku just used one hand to cast ninjutsu, and he was already suppressed. Now that Haku began to use both hands to make hand seals, he must cast a powerful ninjutsu that surpasses the previous ninjutsu, so Sasuke was also very vigilant to look around him. Both hands were placed in front of him, ready to cast ninjutsu to deal with Haku's ninjutsu. Ice Release Secret Jutsu, Magic Mirror Ice Crystal. Haku's voice sounded, and several water pools suddenly appeared around Sasuke. The water seemed to be controlled and began to float in the air. With the continuous injection of Haku's chakra, all the water began to turn into rectangular pieces of solid ice. It was like a cage, and Sasuke was trapped in it. Sasuke also seemed to have a plan in mind, and his hand quickly printed. Then, Sasuke put his left hand on his mouth, and a violent shout sounded. Katan, Great Fireball Jutsu. A flame appeared in front of Sasuke's mouth. As Sasuke's mouth kept blowing, the fire became bigger and bigger, and finally became a fireball with the height of a person, shooting towards a rectangular piece of solid ice. Chapter 259. The huge fireball hit the rectangular ice wall, and from time to time, some sparks splashed around. Under the constant burning of the fireball, some drops of water kept dripping from the ice wall. Sasuke's mouth hung a smile. As long as his fire elemental art could compete with Bai's ice elemental art, then he would have a chance to win. Gradually, the fireball dissipated, but the effect caused by the Great Fireball Jutsu was not as good as Sasuke imagined. On the mirror-like ice wall, there was only a small trace of depression. Even such shallow traces seemed to be constantly recovering. After a while, the traces left by the Great Fireball disappeared. Haku looked at Sasuke in the Magic Mirror's ice crystal range, and stepped into the ice wall. Haku's figure instantly appeared on each ice wall. Fire release can't restrain my ice release. Don't worry. I won't take your life, but at least you won't have the power to fight again in a short time. I'm sorry, for Zabuza-sama, I must defeat you. Behind the mask, Haku's eyes became sharp. The senbon in his hand was held tightly in Haku's hand, apparently waiting for the right time to attack Sasuke. Sasuke seemed to have become discouraged because his attack didn't work. Even if Haku said such words to make him lose his combat power, Sasuke seemed to turn a deaf ear. Now is the time. Haku's eyes instantly found a flaw in Sasuke's body, and the senbon in his hand was thrown out by Haku. Every ice wall with Haku's figure was constantly shooting senbon towards Sasuke. For a time, senbon flew towards Sasuke like a rainstorm. But is Sasuke really that easy to be defeated? The answer is naturally no. When Sasuke saw Haku's attack, he took out a scroll from his arms and instantly opened the scroll in his hand. He dipped some blood in his hand from the wound on his body and quickly drew on the scroll. A huge cloud of smoke spurted out from the scroll. The smoke enveloped Sasuke's body, and Haku couldn't see the specific situation inside. However, one could see the sparks produced when the sharp weapons collided, and hear the sound of senbonzai being shot down. Suddenly, a huge burst of energy was produced from the smoke. The dense fog was dispersed in an instant, revealing a youth with blood-red eyes and a magatama spinning in his eyes. Sasuke has opened his family's Kekkei Genkai, Sharingan. With the help of Nangongja, Sasuke has been able to control his Kekkei Genkai very well, but Sasuke has been keeping it as his trump card. Now, it was finally time for him to fully unleash his power. Sasuke also had a silver-white long sword in his hand. Although it wasn't as good as Nangongja's Heaven's Retribution sword, it was still a refined weapon. Sasuke just used the long sword in his hand to display the kenjutsu taught by Nangongja to block Haku's senbon. Sasuke's kenjutsu, like his Sharingan, appeared in front of everyone for the first time. Although Kakashi has been trying to resist the attacks from Zabuza, he still paid attention to Sasuke and Sakura, his two disciples. At this moment, when he saw Sasuke opening his Sharingan, and even holding a silver-white long sword in his hand, he was shocked. Although he knew that Sasuke had been taught by Nangongja, Kakashi didn't expect Nangongja to teach Sasuke his own kenjutsu. As Nangongja's most powerful means, it was actually taught to Sasuke. Is Nangongja going to let Sasuke become his successor? But Kakashi had no time to think about it, because Zabuza once again launched an attack on Kakashi. It seems that because of Sasuke's matter, Kakashi's mind was slightly disturbed. This time, Kakashi didn't completely avoid Zabuza's attack. A long wound appeared on the side of Kakashi's waist, which was the result of Zabuza's attack. Ha ha ha. This kid's performance is indeed very surprising. But Kakashi, if you lose, how long can such a kid last in my hands? Since I can leave a wound on your waist, I can also leave a wound on your neck. Your life. I will take it. Obviously, he was at a disadvantage, but there was no trace of panic on Kakashi's face at all. Instead, when Zabuza left a wound on his body, his face showed a victorious look like a general. Kakashi's hands quickly printed on his chest like butterflies, and a ninjutsu was instantly completed in his hands. Summoning Earth-released Tooth Chase Jutsu. Kakashi pressed his hands on the ground, and a curse spread on the ground. Smoke burst out instantly, and a huge ninja dog appeared beside him. These ninja dogs were his summoning beasts and the key to Kakashi's victory. On Sasuke's side, with the advantage of his exquisite swordsmanship and taijutsu, Sasuke constantly blocked the senbonzos that were shot at him. Although there was no way to break through the shackles of Magic Mirror Ice Crystal for a while, there was no sign of defeat at all. Sasuke. Suddenly, outside the range of Magic Mirror Ice Crystal, a familiar voice sounded. Sasuke shot down the senbonzos that were shot at him and looked in the direction of the voice. It was Naruto, who was left in Dana's home to take care of Dana's family. Idiot, why are you here? Although he scolded Naruto as an idiot, Sasuke's heart was still warm. After all, the reason why Naruto came here was because he was worried about their safety, right? Two gangsters who looked particularly fierce came to Uncle Dana's home and wanted to kidnap Uncle Dana's daughter and grandson. I have subdued them. Then I got rid of Uncle Nangong to take care of the ordinary people, and then I came to see if you need my help. Naruto seemed to be very proud of himself as he said to Sasuke. After all, he subdued the people who wanted to cause trouble. Sasuke heard that Naruto got rid of Nangongja to take care of the ordinary people of Wave Country, and his heart was set. Then he turned his eyes and looked at Naruto as if he had thought of a good way to break the situation. Chapter 260. Although Sasuke's eyes were staring at Naruto, his hand was slowly placed on his waist, and he seemed to be unconsciously flicking his fingers. Naruto saw Sasuke's action from the corner of his eyes and understood what Sasuke wanted to do. As a qualified ninja who graduated from the Ninja Academy, Naruto may not be so good at academic issues, but under the supervision of Iruka, a very serious class teacher, he remembered some secret signals clearly in his heart. Just like Sasuke's fingers, which seemed to be unconsciously flicking, was actually a relatively common secret signal in wood leaf. Ninjas who weren't from Konoha naturally couldn't understand it, but Konoha's ninjas were very clear. Sasuke seemed to feel that he had fully conveyed his meaning, so he turned around and pulled out several shurikens from his body. Kid, you finally discussed it? Haku wasn't an inexperienced ninja. Over the years, he had been wandering around with Zabuza, and his combat experience was extremely rich. Although Haku couldn't understand the secret signal between Sasuke and Naruto, he knew that these two children must have a plan. No matter what method they want to use to break the situation, he has a way to deal with it. After all, this is his best ninjutsu. With such a ninjutsu, Haku naturally thought about how to deal with various attacks. You want to know what we discussed? Come up and try it yourself, but the tuition is a bit expensive. Take your life as the tuition fee. Sasuke's face was full of confidence, and he seemed to have a way to win the battle. Throwing the shuriken in his hand toward each ice wall, Sasuke's hand quickly formed a seal. Katan, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Sasuke's mouth suddenly spat out a lot of small fireballs, and the small fireballs spread along the steel wire of Sasuke's shurikens. Before Haku could react to what he wanted to do, Sasuke's hand pulled hard, and several explosive tags appeared on the steel wire of the shurikens. He couldn't break Bai's Magic Mirror Ice Crystal with just his fire escape. Why? The reason was that Sasuke's katan wasn't powerful enough. Since his strength wasn't enough, he naturally had to rely on some external forces, right? The explosive talisman was the best external force. Boom! 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 The explosive charms exploded one after another, seemingly randomly looking for a target, but one of the ice walls was hit by at least 4 explosive charms. Naruto, now is the time. Sasuke shouted at Naruto outside, and at this moment, the chakra on Naruto's body seemed to have turned into a substance, like a ribbon around his body. However, the ribbons formed by chakra were densest on Naruto's right hand. At this moment, the veins on his right hand were very obvious. It was obvious that he was under a lot of pressure. Ha! You masked guy, eat my fist. Naruto seemed to be relieving the tingling sensation on his right hand caused by the surge of chakra, and shouted at Haku's figure in the magic mirror ice crystal. At the same time, he also exerted force on his feet and rushed toward the ice wall formed by the magic mirror ice crystal. Because of the strength and speed, the moment Naruto launched the attack, the fog around him seemed to be compressed and then exploded for a moment. However, there was some red chakra in the chakra ribbon wrapped around Naruto's body. Now everyone was paying attention to their own battle, and they didn't notice that this chakra was mixed in Naruto's body. Seeing his fist getting closer and closer to the magic mirror ice crystal, Naruto's heart also calmed down. This time, he could finally show off in front of Sasuke and Sakura. After all, Sasuke was able to escape thanks to him, right? Huh? Naruto suddenly had a trace of doubt in his heart, because according to his current speed, his fist should have already collided with the ice wall formed by the magic mirror ice crystal. But at this moment, Naruto's hand didn't feel the slightest bit of reality, as if he didn't hit anything at all. Naruto didn't understand what happened, but Sasuke saw it clearly from the perspective of a bystander. Because just as Naruto's fist was about to touch the ice wall, Haku actually removed the ice wall directly. The ice wall that had been bombarded by his explosive tag directly shattered, and Naruto himself directly crashed into the range of the magic mirror ice crystal due to the inertia due to his speed and strength. Damn, I didn't expect these ice walls to be so precisely controlled. Sasuke cursed in his mouth, and the place where the collapsed ice wall was now occupied by a newly formed ice wall. Naruto didn't seem to react. He touched his head and said in confusion, "Is the ice wall so fragile? How can it be broken so easily?" Then, he looked at the ice wall that he had just attacked and said with a face full of surprise, "That's right. No way. It's actually there. I didn't encounter any obstacles, is it genjutsu?" With that said, he walked foolishly to the newly formed ice wall and wanted to reach out and touch it. But at the same time, Haku's figure appeared in the newly formed ice wall, and several senbonzans were thrown at Naruto by Haku. Naruto also reacted quickly and blocked the senbonzans with a few flashes. I have to praise you too. After all, a group of genin who have just become ninjas can actually come up with such a method to fight against my ninjutsu. And the cooperation between you two is also very tacit, which is really rare. Haku's applause entered Naruto and Sasuke's ears, but hearing such praise, Sasuke's face was full of anger. His goal was never as simple as winning against someone like Haku. He wanted to defeat his powerful brother and ask him what happened that night. Now he actually suffered a setback in the hands of such a person who has almost no reputation. And even praised by such a person? Stop joking. The pride in Uchiha's blood will never allow him to be despised and teased like this. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.